As our projections demonstrate, tomorrow, like today, every man, woman, and child in America will wake up and do it all again. All of it, including traffic, the workday, bad coffee, your kid's soccer game, laundry, the struggling economy.
Statistical evidence also showed that the nation would once again endure traumatic childhood memories, Twitter, anxiety, poverty, consumerism, rampant abuses of the legal system,
Joint pain, racial inequality, global warming, the steady erosion of civil liberties, violence, loneliness, disease, unresolved intimacy issues, the ravages of age, hunger, sexual frustration, existential dread, the looming specter of death.
For more on this unending story, check this week's Onion Review.
This is the Onion News Network.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number here. That's 603-283-6160, and with you in the studio tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
And Lori.
And in the studio, on the show tonight, we have lots of different things we want to talk about, but one of the things we both were kind of talking about when we were discussing what we wanted to talk about tonight was hurricane stuff and the way that the government is reacting to hurricane stuff and how they're, in some cases, not really helping people. Multiple different stories all on that same topic. I find it really interesting because I have a story from Peter St. Onge where he talks about how the U.S. government turned on the people, and he's referring to how they mismanaged Hurricane Helen. And Lori has a story where they're saying that FEMA has made their greatest, their number one goal is now equity. Mm-hmm. Almost seems like those two things are probably related. But we have a caller on the line from New Hampshire. Dave Ridley in New Hampshire, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Hey, folks. So there is a case I just learned about that's going on in Dover. Looks like one of 3 speech investigations that have gone on in Dover over the last few months. Maybe I would call it the last 6 months.
What does that mean, speech investigations?
I call it a free speech investigation. In this case, it's more like charges related to free speech.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was, according to the Boston Globe, there was a selectman, and he made some statements that that his police department didn't like, and he's now been charged with 3 felonies.
Wow.
They're calling it, quote, intimidating a witness, juror, police, or court official, unquote.
What did he say?
So I guess this goes back, probably the best place to start it is his last name is Jeffries, John Jeffries, the select board chair. And he allegedly improperly stored a firearm in his vehicle, and the vehicle was stolen, and the firearms were never recovered. Allegedly 2 firearms. I'm not actually aware of any laws that require you to store a firearm a certain way in a vehicle in New Hampshire, but I may be missing something.
Yeah. Not aware, but I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I don't know.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that he was charged with that, and what was the Boston? Listen to this from the Boston Globe. Quote: police later found the vehicle in Beverly without the guns and charged Jeffries with improper storage of a large capacity firearm and carrying a firearm inside a vehicle. Unquote. That's not illegal anywhere in the United States that I'm aware of. Except
in
maybe
Mass, I think it is.
Well, so now I think my understanding is if you drive through Mass to some other place, I think maybe it's a little different. But
remember those people, the Moorish people who were driving from somewhere else to Maine, but they had to go through Massachusetts and they had guns. Maybe they took them out of the car and that's why they got pulled over. I don't know.
Oh, and I think it's also a question of whether you're moving to a specific location as opposed to just traveling, and also whether that location allows the firearms that you would have in the vehicle. That applies, I think, nationwide, or I'm sorry, empire-wide in the United States. So anyway, that second thing they're talking about, that must just be a factual error on the part of the Globe. But we should talk about what he actually said. We need to have an exact quote here, right? So Jeffries alleged, according to the Globe article, Jeffries, see, let me go backward just a little bit here. So I guess, he had some other interactions with the police department, and he said that these may have been unrelated interactions. I think he was there for some other matter. He was at the police department for some other matter or something like that. And he said, quote, "You should all be worried, especially the one who works from that corner office right there," unquote, apparently referring to the police chief. And then the other quote was, quote, "I'm not worried about me. I've paid for my mistakes every day since it happened. You all need to be worried now," unquote. Three felonies?
That is so crazy. Because
that's
the thing
so
is
vague. You can't even say it's a threat. Like, what are you worried about? Maybe losing your job? Maybe something else?
That's honestly the first thing I thought of that someone would mean would be, you need to worry about like me countersuing you, not that it is violent. There's no possible way that you could call that, like, there's no way it would stand if they tried to charge these people with actual threatening, because there's no way you can prove that that is a credible violent threat. So they went with something else. They went with intimidating a witness, apparently.
Or something else. It's not, there's just that lack of specificity that we get so much in the media these days.
Yeah, and a lot of these things, I already don't remember what the charges were that you said, but a lot of these things are those type of things that they just pile on. So that way, he's facing 3 different felony charges, and then he's like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And he takes a plea deal in order to get rid of some of the ones that probably wouldn't actually stand in court anyway. But then again, you'll never know when you have a jury if a bunch of idiots are your jury people, and then they're like, well, it looks like the government's in the right here. You're guilty. So I barely blame people for taking plea deals, but that is their method. They basically load you with as many charges as possible. Even if some don't stick, whatever. You still have 5 instead of 0 like you really deserve. And then the prosecution comes to you and they're like, we'll get rid of 4 of these. And if you just like plead guilty to 1... So evil. It's crazy. Anyone who thinks that the United States court system is actually in trying to find justice and bring people to justice is stupid.
So this comes, I guess, about 4 months after another Dover free speech incident where they charged a guy with putting up a poster.
That was the one on the church, yeah?
Yeah. So he was on someone else's property when he did that. But I don't think it's illegal to put a poster on someone else's property, like a church or something like that. They were upset about the content of the poster.
Right, yeah, it wasn't the poster
too much
itself.
About,
what was
it was
this?
too close to what was written in the Bible.
Right.
What was that story?
So it was a poster denouncing homosexuality.
And where was this one?
It was in Dover, also.
Also in Dover. Yeah,
there's a third free speech thing going on in Dover. I'll just call separately about it.
Wow, you can tell us now if you want.
Yeah, so I don't have the details on it, but I know that they're investigating someone like spray painted something on some campaign sign that was by the side of the road. They're investigating that.
Wow. Well,
but again, it's not because they spray painted a circle. It's because of the content of the spray paint. That's why they're coming after the person. It's like they called it an anti-Semitic symbol, but they wouldn't specify what the anti-Semitic symbol was.
It's just a picture of a guy with a big nose.
Yeah, well,
I do not know.
Really laugh.
You can't say that you don't like anything that other people do anymore, or else like that's hate speech.
Yeah. I mean,
like, I disagree with the way you live your life. What? That's a crime.
That's what's crazy about the anti-homosexuality one. It's like you can dislike the way someone lives their life and also not hate them. You can even make fun of someone. You can be like cruel to someone without hating them. It's crazy. And besides, you can hate someone in a free country. You
Yeah,
should
that
be able
too.
to.
That too.
Yeah.
Like, you're allowed to hate people. That's fine.
Yep.
If
There
you're
are
not like committing violence against them, hurting them in some way, then
the argument they always try to use is that it's going to incite violence.
I'm not
And-
responsible for anyone else.
Right. It's crazy. They don't even investigate
Sounds
people
like-
who are actually violent half the time.
Okay, I have nothing else. Sorry.
Oh, thanks, Ridley, for the call. If any caller wants to go to RidleyReport.com for more Dave Ridley, they can do that and see his videos where he confronts government goons and stuff like that. Lots of free speech going on there, but apparently not in Dover, New Hampshire. It's so weird. So weird that there's like 3 separate stories that are clearly like anti-free speech. Well, in the United States at large, there have been lots of hurricanes recently. I saw a picture of Milton like in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico and all big, so I was like, oh no. So I texted my friend in Houston, and she said it didn't, they were like untouched by it. It only affected Florida. So that really sucks for Florida,
Yeah.
like the western side, I guess.
It was a category 5, I think, while it was out on the water, but by the time it hit, it was category 3. But it was more than just like the hurricane itself. There was all these tornadoes
Whoa.
that were going through like before it got there because of, the warm air and cold air mixing together and all that tornado business.
Yeah.
But like those were really messing things up. A lot of people died in like,
Whoa. I
Yeah.
knew that 17 people have died from one of the hurricanes. I don't remember which one it was now. Sorry. I just saw it right before the show. I saw it in the headline.
it must be the second one because the first one, a lot more people died.
in North Carolina.
Yeah. In
Yeah.
North Carolina, a lot of people died.
Yeah, I heard a number recently that was like in the 200s. And even then I was like, whoa, it's been like 2 weeks and I haven't actually heard anyone saying that anyone died. It kind of didn't occur to me. I just didn't think about it.
So I don't know if that's like the official number of dead people that they've found, but there's lots of people missing. Like people got washed away and stuff and just never were seen again.
Yeah, I was seeing somebody was showing me this video. I didn't watch the whole thing, but he was like showing me on his phone a lot of the roads in this area of where the hurricane hit in North Carolina were these roads that are on the side of mountains or hills, and so basically like underneath them is just earth, and the hurricane just basically did kind of made like a mudslide, and all the earth is gone, so the roads are not there anymore. So people were stuck in towns and stuff because those roads are the only ways out, or the only way out. Well, by car. So yeah, really, really crazy stuff. I totally believe that it's possible that they are controlling the weather, and I think it's kind of silly to just write that off immediately as if it's impossible. You don't have to think it's probable or believe it's happening, but it's like, we can fly through the air on a metal machine. It doesn't seem that hard to manipulate the weather a little bit.
They do like cloud seeding and stuff. They manipulate the weather already,
Yeah.
admittedly. So,
Yep, and they admit that. Geoengineering.
right.
They just don't want you to think that they can do anything serious, I guess. But I think it wouldn't be that hard. So this story is from Peter St. Onge. His Substack is Prof. St. Onge Weekly, but all one word. And the story says, how the U.S. government turned on the people. The catastrophic mismanagement of Hurricane Helen, I think that's how you say it, or Helene?
Yeah, I think it's Helene.
That makes sense with the E at the end. Relief. Okay, so the mismanagement.
That's what you were saying, Hurricane Helen, and I was like, when was that?
Yeah, my bad. Whatever. I feel like I've only read this, haven't really been hearing it as much. The catastrophic mismanagement of Hurricane Helene relief is showing the American people that Washington's dysfunctional, but worse, it doesn't even seem to be trying to serve the people. Sorry, I read that exactly how it was written. It just sounded weird.
Did you see the picture of Kamala, whatever her name is, pretending to call people?
Oh, I did.
The phone, like headphones. She had headphones on and like it wasn't even plugged into anything.
No, I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
I just saw a picture where it was like, it looks like she's doing some serious stuff with like paper in front of her, and she has a concerned look on her face. She cares. And
I think it's the same one, but
it
she had
has
like
to be.
headphones and they're not plugged into anything.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so ridiculous. When they do stuff like that, I feel like they're just laughing at us. Like, I don't think that could possibly be an accident. They said, or Peter St. Onge says, instead of the government trying to serve the people, we serve it like livestock. So how did we get here? The long march of bureaucracy. I think that's a reference to like something that somebody wrote about communism. The
Yeah, I think it's like the slow march of communism or something like that.
march through the institutions. He says, but I don't know who wrote that. Was that like a pro-communist thing and it was like Mao talking about it and then they talked about how it's bad later? I don't know. People use that
it's the tiptoe towards communism, right?
I don't know. I've heard it said in the institutions, but maybe it gets changed around a little bit every time somebody talks about it.
And I think it's like anti-communist, telling you like how they tiptoe towards these totalitarian agendas.
Yeah.
So they like slowly just take more and more away from you.
Yep. So it says, as with the economy, the seeds of our political crisis began 100 years ago in the progressive era. But the progressives' big year for taking over the economy was 1913 with the income tax and the Federal Reserve Act. Because Peter St. Onge, he's like, all he talks about is economics.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I see his articles. I always send them to Ian. And they're not really show prep because it's like getting into the weeds on economic stuff. But this is interesting because of his perspective on stuff that we're going to talk about anyway as a person who, like, I guess he's an economist is what you call him.
Mm-hmm.
But the political takeover was earlier. According to historian Murray Rothbard, it began precisely 30 years earlier with something called the Pendleton Act of 1883. Yeah, the Pendletons, were those the... I could be wrong. I was going to say that the Pendletons were that family that, like, kind of were like thugs for the government, and it doesn't have a really quick or easy definition for me when I click on it, so we'll keep going. The act made bureaucrats professionals who are independent of politicians. This was allegedly to fight corruption, but note that a bureaucracy that's independent of politicians is also independent of voters. It's so obvious to, like, me. Like, it's so shocking to me that 1883 there wasn't more outrage about that. Like, it's like when they make a new czar of blah, blah, blah. Nowadays, it's like, what can we do about that? They have all of these things, but the first time they ever did it, no one batted an eye.
I feel like people have always been too, I don't know the word, submissive. Towards,
trusting too.
Yeah, I don't know about trusting, but I think people are just too submissive. They don't want to be the one to rock the boat and bring the attention upon themselves.
Yeah.
Because it never goes well.
Scared, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, scared.
Really true. It's showing a graph here and that says it's federal spending as a percentage of GDP, and it went up a whole bunch in 1920 and it went up a whole bunch in 1940s, but overall it's just went up and up and up and up since 1900 to 2010. He says, after all, politicians are the only part of the government who answer to voters. Allegedly. They're supposed to, I guess. So if bureaucrats don't answer to them, who do they answer to? Simple, they answer to nobody. The government bureaucracy becomes a self-serving, occupying army by design. And that's for, if people who are listening don't really know what the difference is, like, between government bureaucrats and politicians, well, I don't believe that politicians answer to people either, especially not in today's situation. We're so far gone at this point. But bureaucracies are things like, well, the FBI. At first, there's just 3 branches of the government, right? But then somebody goes, oh, well, we need to create a act that gives us this one, the FBI. And then we need to create an act that gives us the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, blah, 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 blah. And then those people have, like, you know, their hierarchy with, like, the people at the top running it. And they have all these little guys all the way down to the, like, lowest people who are just answering phones or whatever. But all of those people get government pensions and paychecks from tax dollars and also from printing of dollars, and they don't have to answer to you. In fact, if you have ever been in the military or married to someone in the military or a child of someone in the military, one of the biggest issues, one of the biggest, like, rifts military people have is with government workers who are civilians. And at first that sounds a little like, that sounds rude. You're all government workers, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, the military people, you know, they have to go to a government worker for, say, they need, I got to fill out this paperwork if I want to get my benefits for such and such. I don't know. or you want to go, I got to go to the government civilian's office who runs housing so that way I can try to get into a house on base, whatever. Those people, if you've ever dealt with them, I don't think it would be possible to ever have a good interaction with them, because they have no incentive to do good for anyone. All they have an incentive to do is like barely drag their feet throughout the day, and they have no respect for you because you're not a customer. You're just somebody who has to go through them, and whether you're military or not.
And there's nothing you can do about it. Like, if they don't do their jobs right, there's no recourse for them. And when something does go wrong, they just investigate themselves and find that they did nothing wrong.
Exactly. And they would just be like mad at you, and you have to deal with them next time. Be like, it's you again. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then they retaliate against you.
That's bureaucrats.
Yeah.
Bureaucrats. The people who work in the jails, bureaucrats. If you have ever been to prison or have a loved one who's been to prison, just having to deal with like a bureaucrat, like they have no incentive to even be kind to you. They just, you have to deal with them no matter what, obviously. But there's no difference between like a prison bureaucrat and a housing on base bureaucrat, because neither one of them have any incentive to do good. They're not going to get fired for being rude to you. So he says that they answer nobody, and government bureaucracy becomes a self-serving occupying army, which is a great way to put it, by design. Progressives did this because they've convinced themselves that government workers are omniscient angels, that the act of collecting a government paycheck is a kind of purifying bath that washes away the greed and malice of the unwashed masses over whom the government lords. This may sound goofy, but talk to a progressive. And it's just like he's being a little exaggerating on purpose, but he's barely exaggerating because it's true. If you talk to Sarah, for example, Sarah from New Mexico, if you ask her, well, what will cause the government to make sure everything is fair in a communist society, Sarah, where you're saying everyone will get the same paycheck, but people will just work and do hard jobs because, well, for the good of their community, if you have no control over your life or your money or anything like that, how will you be able to trust the government workers that they'll do good? And her answer is always just like, well, they'll want to do good for the community.
Mm-hmm. And they care.
And they just care for some reason. People who work for the government, they're just, for some reason, the only moral people to a leftist.
Super altruistic.
And what's crazy is when you have a perfect, almost, system that you could utilize called capitalism, that just free market capitalism, that gives people an exact reason to be good to their customers, gives people an incentive to do things right and to not get, lose customers, then people for some reason call people who want to make money greedy. Well,
because they're brainwashed.
Exactly. That's the reason.
Because if everybody agrees that that is the best way to have a good society, then there's no more need for the government bureaucrats.
Yep, exactly. Because we could do everything without them. We could do protection. We could have military without the government. We could have just put like police in your town without the government. Sounds crazy. And you could fire them if they did a bad job if they were private. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. How did the government mess up in their job, supposedly, that they're supposed to do in helping these people during these hurricanes recently? It's an important conversation, and we're going to get right back into it. Don't go anywhere. It's Free Talk Live, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number you can call.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 13th through the 16th for the 8th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which has sold out in recent years. Fork Fest happens the weekend before the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 13th through the 16th. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there June 13th through the 16th. Forkfest.party.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nina Maria-Potts with a roundup of the week's top stories. In the Middle East, Israel has said it's conducting a thorough review after the deaths of 2 UN peacekeepers on Friday in southern Lebanon. UN peacekeepers in Lebanon warned of very serious risks after the explosions. Israel and Hezbollah have continued in southern Lebanon since last week to clash when Israel embarked on a so-called targeted incursion into Lebanon against the Iran-backed Lebanese militant group. Friday's episode came after peacekeeping mission UNIFIL said its positions had been reportedly hit amid international condemnation of Israel on Thursday. On Friday, Hezbollah said it fired rockets at Israeli troops as the clashes continue. Jody Jacobs reports from the United Nations in New York.
The United Nations now increasingly concerned about the security of the Blue Helmets in southern Lebanon. This after it reported another explosion at its peacekeeping headquarters, the second time in the last 48 hours. 2 peacekeepers were injured and have now been hospitalized. The UN also reports that several walls at one of its positions fell when an IDF Caterpillar tank hit the perimeter, while others moved closer to the peacekeeping post. While the peacekeepers remained in position, the UN says these incidents again put the Blue Helmets, who are serving in South Lebanon at the request of the Security Council, at very serious risks. Attacks against UN peacekeepers are a grave violation of international law and legally binding Security Council resolutions. Jody Jacobs, New York.
At least 16 people are now known to have died in Florida after Hurricane Milton swept across the state this week. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said search and rescue efforts are ongoing. Milton made landfall on Wednesday night as a powerful Category 3 hurricane, bringing torrential rain, powerful winds and tornadoes. Officials in Clearwater in Florida say more than 500 people had to be rescued from a flooded apartment complex on Thursday in the wake of the storm.
State search and rescue teams across the state have continued to work around the clock to successfully execute rescue missions of individuals as well as a lot of pets on the West Coast, as well as from the destruction from the tornadoes in other parts of the state. You already have 1.6 million accounts have been restored in the state of Florida.
This week, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken condemned Beijing's increasingly dangerous actions in the South China Sea and voiced support for freedom of navigation. Laura Westbrook has more.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken had strong words for Southeast Asian leaders. He said the U.S. was concerned about China's dangerous and unlawful actions in the South China Sea, which have injured people, harmed vessels, and contradicts commitments to peaceful resolution of disputes.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number here. That's 603-283-6160. We have a caller on the line, but first, not your keys, not your Bitcoin is a lesson that too many people have learned the hard way. It's always best to get your crypto into a wallet that you control, but not all wallets are equal. Many of our hosts have been using Edge Wallet for years to manage crypto, and there just aren't many wallets to compare. Featuring a unique login system that makes it easier for you to access your crypto from multiple devices, Edge is designed to be user-friendly. In a space that can be notoriously difficult for non-techie people, Edge is a valuable tool for novices and experts alike. You can learn more at edge.app, which features a link at the top for those who wish to learn more about crypto and wallets. That's edge, edge.app. Thank you again to Edge for sponsoring Free Talk Live for $1,500 a month, and thanks again. You can go to edge.app for more. Well, on the show tonight, on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
And Lori.
And let's go to the phones. We have Peter in California on the line. Peter in California, you said that you are a retired civil servant. Is that what you said?
Yes, ma'am. I worked on a military base. I was part of Public Works. and I was a mechanic, and I had the complete opposite experience. Because we were so understaffed, we would work 6 days a week. I had to work extremely hard all the time, which is fine. That's my personality. But I also knew that if I didn't do my job, I would be fired. I had 2 coworkers who would goof off, and they were let go. We couldn't afford to have people goofing off. So, you know, it might be that way somewhere, but where I worked, you're expected to work. And another thing I wanted to bring up, I could have made more outside of the government, but I took the job because you have the benefits, the retirement, and for me, it was a complete opposite experience.
Well,
I mean, you were expected to work, and
one thing I have to ask is, if you were just simply rude to a customer and the customer comes and talks to the manager or whatever you would call your higher-ups, you're not getting fired for that, are you?
You know, I never experienced that. My personality isn't to be that way, so I can't.
Or anyone around you?
No, I tend to get along with people, and I can't comment on that. I never had that experience, and the guys I worked with, I never experienced, you know, them acting that way. So I really can't comment on that. I have no idea.
Okay, well, I mean, I just don't really think that what you're saying refutes everything I was saying. I was a military brat. My dad was in the military from before I was born until I was 25 years old. I lived on, 8 different military bases. And then when I graduated high school, I still lived on that military base for 4 more years. I had to deal with housing on that military base. I've known thousands of military members. And if you say to them, oh my God, civilian government employees, they're the worst, they're all going to agree. And it sounds like you're talking about a job, a mechanic, that has some stuff that really needs to get done. But when it comes to something like housing, oh, I put you on the list, sweetie. You know, and like days go by.
Paper pushers.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that, like in the real world, probably just wouldn't exist. And then if it has to exist, has some kind of incentive to get done quickly, not be rude and condescending to your employees. And another office, not sure what you would call these people, that I dealt with and had just some of the worst quote unquote customer service experience of my life is every time I had to get a new military ID. The people that work in that office, like, they don't care that you're waiting in a line, they've forgotten about you, it's like, well, everyone knows this situation with the DMV. This is the DMV of the military. And the thing about it is, people who join the military, they at least have this kind of like a personality characteristic that most of them think that they're doing something selfless and good. I don't really believe that about government employees who just do something like, I'm going to work in the office where I get people their IDs.
No, they do the job for benefits and security.
Yeah, and the thing about that I'd say is like, well, you said you could have made more, but the benefits outweighed it. That's kind of the same thing as saying that you took that job for the pay and the benefits.
Well, actually, what I did, I had called in 2 weeks ago. I probably should have called myself a femboy, because the Joker, one of your guys, called me a femboy, which I thought was a joke. But so I took the government job to learn the trade, and then I ended up going into business for myself. So I knew I had to work hard to get where I wanted to be. So I had a whole different mentality when I went in. But I have to agree that whenever, like you're saying, the pass office, or when I would put in paperwork, you're right, that goes really slow. And the government's known for that. But me in particular, the guys I worked with, we're all extremely hard workers, and not every government employee just sits on his butt and goofs off. That's for sure.
Just most
and
of them, just 99% or something.
Yeah, I don't know. The guys I worked with, which was a pretty big crew, we busted our butts all day. And
I feel like it's different, though, because Bonnie was mostly referring to like bureaucracies. And like a mechanic's job is not really that. It's not something where everyone's just sitting around pushing paper, collecting their paycheck. It's something where the job actually needs to get done or nothing will function.
That's true. I can't argue that.
Yeah, I don't really know much about, I didn't even know there would be a government mechanic outside of like the military working on like their planes and trucks and stuff. So never even met anyone who was a government mechanic, honestly. But
maybe he worked on military vehicles, or...
Maybe that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Anything else, caller?
No. Thank you.
Thank you for the call. It's Free Talk Live. That means you can call 603-283-6160 and bring up whatever's on your mind. And it doesn't have to be on topic. You can change the topic to whatever you want to talk about. That's 603-283-6160. But in last segment, we were talking about how we even got to this situation where the government bureaucrats who are supposed to be civil servants and take care of people and do it so selflessly that they are just doing it because they're good angels. Well, how do we get in this situation where now there are people dying in a hurricane just because they've been neglected by these people that they paid their tax dollars to in case something like this happened?
Yep. And I heard all those stories where people were like, oh, FEMA won't let civilians help with the disaster. And the government was like, no, that's not true. But then I saw a video of a Black Hawk coming down and like blowing away all of the supplies that were laid out for people they did a, what is it called? Like a rotor burst or something like that, where they come down real low and the helicopter blades are spinning and it blows everything away.
Wow.
So, and then they tried to like say that wasn't intentional, but like what?
How would you accidentally do that?
Yeah, I just didn't see that whole big giant setup that you guys had down there. And I didn't know, even though I fly a helicopter, that it would be all this crazy wind. So they're saying that it's under investigation, but I'm sure that it was intentional.
They're investigating themselves to find that they did nothing wrong.
That's right.
That is just absolutely like kind of sad and like infuriating. So in the last segment, we were reading this from Peter St. Onge's Substack, where he was saying that progressives did this because they convinced themselves that government workers are angels. And seriously, we talk to Sarah every single night. That is what leftists think. They think that people work for the government because they're selfless.
Don't you know that Sarah works for the government just for free now?
She does? Oh,
yeah,
kinda.
she said that the other day. She was like, what does she call herself? I'm a civil servant, I think is what she said.
Just
but
for doing voting
just for
outreach.
free. Like, I just don't get paid for it.
Yeah.
I'm a volunteer civil servant.
Sarah's been going around with like a sign and telling people to sign up to vote, and that's basically it. And
it's just Democrats, just people who look like Democrats.
Yeah, and she said she can tell by looking at someone if they're a Democrat, which honestly, true.
Yeah, I asked her what a Democrat looks like, and I wanted her to tell me. Yeah, blue hair, like not dressed well.
So
in their pajamas.
I mean, like the thing about Sarah, she doesn't understand that being a servant for someone or doing someone a service would require doing something for them that they value.
Right. Something that somebody actually wants.
What Sarah does, and then she says that it's like what she's doing for her community, quote unquote, is always something that like enriches her and really no one else.
Right. Like and when she said she was giving out her MLM products.
Oh, yeah.
I'm doing a service to my community by giving them my free MLM products even to try to get them to order more.
Yeah, even the people who she said ran away from her. And then she's like, I don't know why they don't want my free MLM products. Literally running away from her.
Mm-hmm.
And getting mad at her and telling her to leave their husbands alone because she's giving them all this crap. But that's an example. But also she used to say that calling stations to talk about whatever Democrat stuff she wants to talk about is her community service. It's her job. That's what she said. So calling radio stations to talk about stuff that interests her, I don't really think anybody else is like, that is a service I need and value. And I'm so glad Sarah's doing that. Honestly, I don't.
Not with Sarah's calls about New Mexico now. Some people that call, I'm like, that is a great service that I valued.
Actually, Dave really does a pretty good job with that. Like he calls lots of stations, not even just whatever, or, lots of shows, not just Free Talk Live. And he finds interesting things that we may have not heard about, or he spreads the word about things that I think are like worth doing. Mm-hmm. He also has his own YouTube where he does it himself, like it's not like he's like just being like dependent. So anyways, the main point here is that leftists think that bureaucrats are just angels who will do good for anybody. But he says, of course, after COVID, anybody who thinks bureaucrats are omniscient angels needs a lobotomy. Very true. I clicked on a picture, sorry. So
maybe they could get like state-sponsored lobotomies.
That might make them more likely to get a vaccine, so maybe they will start doing that. It says, once installed with Pendleton, the Pendleton Act, this independent bureaucracy was, of course, captured by the left, socialists, because they both wanted the same thing, increased government control. They began in the progressive era with widespread regulations that were billed as reining in big business, but were, of course, written by big business, marketed by their paid socialist activists, then implemented by bureaucrats whose funding came from politicians on the payroll.
The whole thing about big business is, what do people think government is? That is big business.
Just like without being a good business.
Right. Well,
big, crappy business.
Well, that's what all big business is like the big businesses are all these corporations that are
should have failed,
in bed with the government, getting their little special protections and stuff. And the government is just another big business now. Like, it's its own corporate entity that protects its own interests, its own monetary interests.
And one thing about it is, in school, I'm always saying this to people. I don't know if you agree. I don't know if I've said it in front of you. But whenever we bring up what were you brainwashed with in school, a huge one for me, and I've been already seeing it in my little brother's curriculum because I've been helping him homeschool himself through his, it's not public school, it's something called Connections Academy, but it still has the brainwashing in it. And anyways, one of the biggest topics was always like every single year, it seemed like, except the year that I did had Texas history for social studies, they talked about robber barons. Oh, the reason we need unions is there were these big bad robber barons, and basically they made people work every single hour of the day for 1 cent an hour, and even children had to work. And then once we got unions, people went to the bosses and said, we aren't going to work anymore unless you give us better pay. And then the bosses were like, oh, okay. And now that's why we have unions, and they saved us. Otherwise we'd be living these terrible lives in factories every single day. That is like a huge topic every single year that I would learn in school.
No, we didn't have that one.
And it's just such BS because, like, yeah, monopolies are bad, but they're enforced by the government now. And the other thing about it is that they it's just like all overblown, and they want you to believe that without government reining in big business, as he's talking about here, we would be, at the mercy of all this crap. And the thing is, like, now we're at the mercy of government crap that there's no possible way for the people to have any kind of mechanism to rein them in, like the cops. How are the cops any different than the robber barons? We are literally, they call us subjects, and they can do whatever they want to people, up to and including killing people without getting in trouble. And you can't go, hey, we're not gonna pay you anymore unless you guys start treating us right. You can't do anything about it.
If anybody thinks that the police are not specifically to protect government and business interests, they should look into the history of cops. Like, that's how they started. That was their entire purpose.
Like getting free or runaway slaves too.
Yeah, well, like the American police, what it is now, was started to, like, as a business security system, basically.
So like big businesses would have cops.
Small businesses. But they would they'd pay them off to protect their business from other people. I'll have to find, I used to listen to this podcast that was great, and I'll have to find it on break so I can tell you about it. It's all about the history of police and how it started and like how we got to where we are now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
One thing that's like also true is probably like two different little areas of the country or something is that, and this is what I've always heard, but I didn't like go and look deep into this or anything. It's just totally believable to me is that they started off as, I don't know how they exactly got structured or who funded them or anything, but they were used to catch runaway slaves. And then they're just like, these people are great. We're going to keep them around. And now they just, keep the slaves in line, the wage slaves in line. All, really similar stuff. The thing is, like, the idea that it matters more to you that you're being abused by someone whose, like, title is big business, but it doesn't matter to you that you're being abused by someone whose title is federal government or, your local government even, it's just like, these people can't think. You could be treated the same exact way, harmed in the same exact way by these people, but as long as they're called the government, people are that brainwashed that they're like, oh, this is okay and in fact good.
Yeah, like no matter what the situation is, if there's some kind of the police shot somebody or like they did something to them that was unjust, the first reaction you get from people is, oh, well, I'm sure there was a reason. They shouldn't have ran. They shouldn't have done this. They shouldn't have done that. Like, it's their own fault.
Yeah.
No matter how egregious the thing was, it's always pushed back onto the fault of the other person because they think that these people are infallible angels, like this, like this article was saying.
Only like a couple people said it to my face, but Nikki, she used to be a host on the show. She said that people, like multiple people, even in her like family, would say to her whenever she would be like, "Oh my God, this horrible thing's happening to my friends. Their house got raided by the FBI, and one of them got arrested, and all the stuff's happening." She said so many people would say to her, "Well, what did they do?"
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
What did they do to deserve such a thing?
Yeah, and people said it to Aria's
They
face,
deserved
too.
it, right.
Yeah.
So the podcast generally is Behind the Bastards, which is a fantastic podcast. Goes through like all the bastards of history and like gives you the backstory on them.
Interesting.
And this is like an offshoot of that, and it's called Behind the Police. I should have just figured out that was what it was called, but I wasn't sure. So
Nice.
it's called Behind the Police and tells you the whole history of policing.
Oh, that sounds definitely worth looking into. Yeah, I need more ammo. I feel like it's just been years and years. Like, it's been almost a decade that I've been red-pilled or black-pilled or whatever on police that I'm just like, yep, that's obvious. Like, almost like if I see somebody who supports police, like, I know
Thin
that
blue
we have nothing to possibly have the same ground to stand on to have a conversation about it. Especially now.
Stu was selling some rabbits for someone's dogs. They were like raw feeding their dogs rabbits, and he was selling the rabbits. And when he got there, the lady had like a thin blue line sticker on the back of her car, and he was like, "I'd never ever want to sell anything to her again."
Yeah, I don't blame that at all. Like, even just an hour before the show, my little brother and I was like, we have an hour and a half. Let's just go see what Pumpkin Fest is like, because I've never been. It's a thing going on in Keene downtown right now, and I live like walking like 10 minutes away from downtown. And so we went there, and there were like lots of pumpkins, whatever. But in the crowd, a lot of people were dressed up, even though it's not Halloween, it's Pumpkin Fest. But
all month is Halloween. Yeah,
and I support dressing up whenever, but I don't know. I was just saying it's not Halloween. Whatever. I would totally have dressed up if it was like a day I was off and I was just going to Pumpkin Fest and I thought of it. I totally would have dressed up too. But anyways, a lot of kids were dressed up, and I was like walking past this family, nothing wrong, having a good day. It's so nice outside. And then one of the little boys is dressed up as a cop, just like, not even like Paw Patrol. No, just like a straight up cop. And I was just like, I just was like, I can't imagine like doing that to my kid, even if they just like on their own were like, no, I like cops. Cops are good guys. I would be like, no, child. Whatever. I don't know. I was going to say Jacob because that's my little brother's name, and this exact thing happened. Actually, I'll just tell you what I did with my little brother when he did that, because he was brainwashed by Paw Patrol. He wanted to be a cop when he grew up because they're the good guys. I was like, Jacob, policemen came into my house and they hurt me. Actually, wait, that was before the FBI raided my house. Just I had other situations with cops. I was like, Jacob, cops came to my work and took me to jail and they hurt me. Because it's true. They didn't physically hurt me, but they like ruined my life. And he was just like in shock. He was like, why would they do that? And I was like, because they're bad people, Jacob. Like, how is that lying to him? It's not. I think someone out there listening might be like, oh my God, that's just counter propaganda. That's literally the truth. If I'm literally telling him the truth and it convinces him to hate cops, it's better than, oh, well, he learned that cops are good guys from Paw Patrol.
Right.
In my opinion. So we got into cops because I was basically making the comparison that like, oh, we reined in big business. Doesn't even matter if we brought in big government. No difference at all if if the big business was like such a monopoly, there's nothing you can do about them, because that's exactly what we have with government. But if it was even slightly free market, then big business wouldn't even be a big deal. Honestly, like, it wouldn't matter that there was a monopoly if we had a completely free market, because it would just mean that that's the one that people are choosing to support. And if there was other people had the ability to join that same, like, make their own store that was similar, then if they did better, they could be supported,
I feel like at this point it's gone so far with the government protections that it would be extremely hard to take down the monopolies.
Oh yeah, without a free market, yeah.
Even with a free market, like, I feel like they're such monoliths at this point. They're huge, billions and billions of dollars. And to compete against them would be extremely hard because they buy like these companies.
Oh, you're saying like if nothing changed right now except like the government disappeared.
Yeah.
I guess that is
like,
true.
To change it would be such an undertaking because they have so much and because they have such a huge customer base, they can do things that small businesses can't do. Like they can get better prices. They can, have deals with other production companies to make things for them that you can't get otherwise, like as a small business. And I feel like it would be so hard.
I don't really think that it would be that big of a deal, to be honest, because like there's not 0 stores selling things other than Amazon right now. It's like if it was a free market and you really wanted to not support Amazon, for example, it's just the most obvious one in my opinion, but I'm not saying that they're like super evil. I don't have any reason to like be like, oh, I want them to go away forever. But if I did, I think I could live my life shopping from other places. And if there was no free market, if there was a free market, there would be no, hey, you could get into selling washcloths, but you have to pay this, that, and that. And then like all this stuff that keeps people prohibited from being able to make a profit because, well, I already put $20,000 into my business before I started selling washcloths. I think people could do it.
The thing is like the average person in this country has like no money. Everyone's poor in this country, most people. And these companies like Walmart and Amazon and stuff buy in such massive bulk amounts that they can sell things for so cheap that a person who's not buying these massive bulk amounts couldn't sell for. And so they end up getting a large amount of business because of that, because people are living on a shoestring.
But I just don't think that Amazon making money actually hurts you in such a way that I don't even mean as a customer. I mean as a customer. I mean as a person selling things.
I don't think it hurts you. I think it would be just really hard to compete with them at this point
I
where
mean
they're at.
That's what I meant. I don't think that it'd be that hard to compete with them because there are people right now who buy things from like cheap from like AliExpress, from things where they do drop ship and stuff like that, and they have businesses, and that's even with all these like terrible gates in the way they have to jump over. Gate is not the word I was looking for, but I don't know. I think that without the government forcing people to pay tariffs and things like that, the other problem would be the monetary system. We couldn't really have a free market with the monetary system we have now, so that would have to go too. And then money wouldn't be as tight for people, I believe. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nina Maria Potts with a roundup of the week's top stories. In the Middle East, Israel has said it's conducting a thorough review after the deaths of 2 UN peacekeepers on Friday in southern Lebanon. UN peacekeepers in Lebanon warned of very serious risks after the explosions. Israel and Hezbollah have continued in southern Lebanon since last week to clash when Israel embarked on a so-called targeted incursion into Lebanon against the Iran-backed Lebanese militant group. Friday's episode came after peacekeeping mission UNIFIL said its positions had been reportedly hit amid international condemnation of Israel on Thursday. On Friday, Hezbollah said it fired rockets at Israeli troops as the clashes continue. Jody Jacobs reports from the United Nations in New York.
The United Nations now increasingly concerned about the security of the Blue Helmets in southern Lebanon. This after it reported another explosion at its peacekeeping headquarters, the second time in the last 48 hours. 2 peacekeepers were injured and have now been hospitalized. The UN also reports that several walls at one of its positions fell when an IDF Caterpillar tank hit the perimeter, while others moved closer to the peacekeeping post. While the peacekeepers remained in position, the UN says these incidents again put the Blue Helmets, who are serving in South Lebanon at the request of the Security Council, at very serious risks. Attacks against UN peacekeepers are a grave violation of international law and legally binding Security Council resolutions. Jody Jacobs, New York.
At least 16 people are now known to have died in Florida after Hurricane Milton swept across the state this week. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said search and rescue efforts are ongoing. Milton made landfall on Wednesday night as a powerful Category 3 hurricane, bringing torrential rain, powerful winds and tornadoes. Officials in Clearwater in Florida say more than 500 people had to be rescued from a flooded apartment complex on Thursday in the wake of the storm.
State search and rescue teams across the state have continued to work around the clock to successfully execute rescue missions of individuals as well as a lot of pets on the West Coast, as well as from the destruction from the tornadoes in other parts of the state. So the storm left, the outer bands of the storm left the state yesterday afternoon, and yet you already have 1.6 million accounts have been restored in the state of Florida.
This week, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken condemned Beijing's increasingly dangerous actions in the South China Sea and voiced support for freedom of navigation. Laura Westbrook has more.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken had strong words for Southeast Asian leaders. He said the U.S. was concerned about China's dangerous and unlawful actions in the South China Sea, which have injured people, harmed vessels, and contradicts commitments to peaceful resolution of disputes. Laura Westbrook, Hong Kong.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky travelled to Germany as part of a multi-country tour across Europe this week. He's seeking access to long-range missiles, something so far Germany has refused. From Berlin, Trent Murray has more.
President Zelensky had been hoping to meet President Biden here in Germany, but the White House announced the president was postponing his trip to Europe to deal with Hurricane Milton. For his part, President Zelensky has travelled to London, Paris, Rome and now Berlin, where he's pushed European allies for more support in his country's defence against Russia. Trent Murray, Berlin.
Italy's government has announced that controversial new migrant processing centres in Albania are now operational. Up to 3,000 migrants will pass through the centres every month from now on, while their applications for asylum in Italy are being processed. Giles Gibson reports from Rome.
Almost a year since the Italian government announced a deal to build 2 migrant processing centres in Albania at a cost of more than $700 million, they're now officially open. Men arriving in Italy by irregular routes will be taken to Albania while their asylum applications are being evaluated. Women and children will still be taken to existing facilities in Italy. Critics have accused Giorgia Meloni's government of creating an Italian Guantanamo and of transporting human beings like packages. It's not clear at this stage when the first migrants will be transferred to the new facilities.
And a reminder now of the week's top story. In the Middle East, Israel has said it's conducting a thorough review after the deaths of 2 UN peacekeepers on Friday. And that's the roundup of the week's top stories. From Washington, I'm Nina Maria Potts reporting.
The American robin heralds the beginning of spring in temperate climates across North America. Its red breast makes it easily identifiable as the most disturbingly efficient murderer in the animal kingdom. Here, we see a robin rip a worm out of the ground with no moral hesitation whatsoever. This atrocity is but one in a series of cold-blooded murders this bird will commit in a single day. Although feces-fueled worms are themselves one of the most disgusting of all animals, the robin's cruelty remains indefensible. Some apologists might argue that robins need to eat worms to survive, but worms are capable of regeneration. So robins could satiate themselves on fractions of individual worms and leave the rest. But it does not. Unequivocal evidence of the robin's bloodlust.
This is the Onion News Network.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. Free Talk Live is a show where you can call in with whatever is on your mind at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash, Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency made for spending. You can pay your bills with Dash at Spread.Finance. Plus, they can send dollars to your bank if you still need those for something. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month for this sponsorship. It's easy to get and use Dash. You can learn more at dash.org. That's dash.org. And with you on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
And Lori.
And in the last few segments, we can move on from it, but in the last few segments, we were talking about how, well, I guess we didn't really get into how it connected to the hurricanes. I like this whole topic, and I definitely think people should read like lots of stuff from Peter St. Onge at his Substack. It's Prof. St. like St. Onge, O-N-G-E, weekly. He does really good write-ups about stuff. I just really liked how this article, instead of just talking about like an economic situation happening in China right now or something, which whenever he talks about that kind of stuff, it just goes right over on my head. It's all like in the weeds. And Ian would listen to his daily podcast, which he does a really good job. He does these one take 2 or 3 minute things where he's just like giving you all the news in the economics world, finance and everything. And almost none of it made any sense to me because I didn't know what he was talking about or anything. But when he's talking just basically about like things we talk about on Free Talk Live, why the government is bad, he does a really, really good job when he does that. So this article, it's been how the U.S. government turned on the people. And he talks about it from like the very beginning. So I think we can definitely skip a lot of that. But he was talking about how basically why they don't actually, the government isn't there to help you and what they're actually there for. Because the thing is, like, we're brainwashed into thinking that the government is here to help us so that way they can use us more and more.
Who was it that said the scariest words? Was it?
I heard it was
Reagan?
Ronald Reagan.
Was it Reagan? I'm from the government and I'm here to help you.
Yeah, I heard that just recently that it was Reagan.
I think it was Reagan.
It was. Oh yeah, I turned on the radio last night, so I was like, me and you must have heard that from the same viral video or something recently. Like, obviously, it's a known quote. Like, I've known it before. But the other day, I was driving home, my phone died. I was so annoyed, so I just turned on the radio. I was with my little brother, and he was like, what is AM radio? But anyways, I just wanted to see if something interesting was on, like Coast to Coast. I couldn't find that, but Mark Levin was on, and he started off his segment saying, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you, are the scariest 5
scariest words
or whatever words in English. But then he said it was from Ronald Reagan, and I was like, dang, people are so brainwashed to not even think that that's ironic.
Right.
You know, Mark Levin, just like the great Ronald Reagan, who actually oh wait, no, he didn't make the EPA, that was Nixon. Anyways, I'm sure he started new agencies like we're talking about here in this article.
Was Reagan the war on drugs?
He definitely like was serious about the war on drugs. I just don't know if he started it.
Or was it Nixon?
Yeah, I don't know. Because Nixon,
I was like not
Nixon
alive
was porn too. He started the war
when
on porn.
Nixon wasn't around, so
Yeah.
it's hard to like keep all these old guys
Yeah.
straight. They're all just old dead guys.
Is Carter the oldest living president? Because he looks like a skeleton.
I didn't even know he was still alive.
Or maybe he like recently died, because there was a recent thing recently where I kept seeing a picture of him and he looks like a dead body, basically. But
oh wait, yeah, I do remember seeing a video of him recently where they like rolled him out and
Yeah,
he was
he's on
like the crypt keeper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, I remember that now.
Well, this is what this is how Peter St. Onge ends the article. He says, the administrative state can be defeated, but not by fighting the Hydra head by head. Rather, you go to the source, the independent bureaucracy. To end the totalitarian deep state, politicians must have the ability to fire and hire anybody they like. I guess he's more of a not a monarchist, a minarchist, because
he's still like, if we have a government,
yeah. But he's talking about just ending the deep state, but keeping the state. Sounds like a bad idea to me, but he said to end the totalitarian deep state, politicians must have the ability to fire and hire anybody they like, because the people must have that power. And until we abolish governments, so he's talking step by step. I can get behind that then. Politicians are their only voice. The only alternative is progressive enslavement by bureaucratic commissars until the people rise up and fix it by other means that few will enjoy. So, yeah, I don't know. If we gave the government the power to fire people, I don't know, do they not already have that power? Trump was always firing people.
So that, what was it called? The act? Patterson?
Pendleton?
Mm-hmm. I was reading about it on the break, and you're not allowed to fire somebody for political reasons.
Oh, yeah.
So I feel like that could be used as a pretty broad brush to paint your firing with and have some type of recourse against it.
So, like, if you fired someone because they were doing a bad job or whatever, but then they say, you fired me for
retaliation for my views or whatever. Yeah,
exactly. That's true. Oh my God. This dog really looks like Coconut when he has not have a haircut in like a year. That looks like a white version of him. So this article from the Wall Street Journal with the picture I was just referencing is called, They Came to Florida for a Slice of Paradise. Now they're packing their bags. We have multiple different stories we're going to cover tonight that involve the government and their handling of the hurricanes. I think I just skipped the part where he talked about FEMA in the last article, but it's all related.
Yeah.
Government not being accountable to the people. That's how you end up with stuff like we've seen in North Carolina and Florida this year. So this is also interesting to me as a free stater, because a lot of the time Florida seems to think there are competition.
Mm-hmm. Where they're the freest state.
Yeah, in fact, they'll say that they're the real free state, and it just seems like a police state to me down there.
Everywhere seems like a police state to me.
Yeah, that's true. I seriously, that's like the number one thing that freaks me out about leaving New Hampshire is just like being on the road with people like expecting to get pulled over, and it's going to be a lot worse in New Hampshire, because the thing is, there are a lot of cops here and they pull people over, but a friend of mine was talking recently about, I think this was a study that showed that like over 80% of, maybe over 90% of times that you get pulled over in New Hampshire, you go off with a warning. Mm-hmm. And I've now been pulled over one time, and I just got let off with a warning when I was going like 70 and a 50. So I was like, oh, I'm in trouble. But I got let off with a warning, and he was like, basically just kept prying into my information. I was just like giving him one-word answers. I didn't be rude to him or suspicious or anything, and I just got let off with a warning. So
Stu got pulled over that one time, and the cop was a real jerk.
Yeah, that's true.
Like for no reason at all, and then like stole from him.
Yeah.
But it got dropped
really
when
targeted.
Yeah. But when he took it to court, it got dropped. So
it seemed like that to me, because like, I went to his court hearing that day where, like, months later, where he requested a hearing or, got forced to go to court or whatever.
He asked for it
okay.
because he wasn't going to pay it. So,
and it was just like everything I heard was like, why did it escalate before he even like got out of the car? It seemed like it was like he didn't like Stu or something, and does Stu have any like bumper stickers or something?
No, we don't even have a single bumper sticker on our truck. There's nothing that says like who we are or what we stand for or anything like that.
And he was following behind before. He was just like, oh, what reason to pull over? That sounded like not a good reason to me.
I swear that Stu gets profiled because he has really dark skin from being tan and like always out in the sun, and so I think he gets profiled by cops.
I would totally believe that.
He got pulled out of line during like TSA multiple times when we flew. Like one time of flying, he got pulled out multiple times to be checked.
It's like, I don't even know how this works, but I just saw him and I think white guy myself, but it does.
I think so too.
Yeah. It does register in my head that he's much like darker than me for sure.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe that could totally be it, especially if somebody's from New Hampshire and like they're just like think anybody with remotely dark skin is.
And they're just seeing
white.
him go by too. Like they're not staring at him. They just see dark skin and dark hair and like,
Yeah, that could totally be it because it's like if you hadn't ever witnessed it happen, sometimes like people will claim that they're getting discriminated against and it almost sounds like unbelievable. But every now and then I've witnessed it happen. Like a friend that was like half Mexican, half white. He says he gets called white in Brownsville, Texas, but he's clearly Mexican in New Hampshire. It got stopped at exiting the Walmart like 5 times around me, and it's like I've never gotten stopped. Like, in 28 years.
When we lived in Utah, there was a point in time where he was riding his bike to work. He worked like a 3rd shift job, and he was just riding his bike to work, and he would get pulled over on his bike.
Wow.
Yep.
That's so stupid.
I know.
That's so annoying.
It's crazy.
I didn't even know they really pull over people on their bikes.
Where are you going? What you doing? Where are you coming from?
So I'm not saying that like cops in New Hampshire are perfect. They suck a lot. And still, I feel more safe if I'm around one of them than I don't feel safe. That's the whole thing. Like, they're bad, but I still feel like if I'm in Ohio and I get pulled over by a cop, like, I'm not even going to attempt to, like, film them and stuff like that. I'm just going to hope they don't kill me.
Yeah. If I was, like, down south, I don't know how I would be in straight panic, like in good old boy land.
Like I never got pulled over in Texas either, and I did Uber Eats, so I drove so much more there than I drive here. But there's just so many cars. I think it's like kind of like a luck of the draw thing. It's like there's so many cars, like I just didn't get pulled over. But anyways, anytime a cop did drive past me, I just felt like serious like panic come over me because it's just like, it just seems like they're lunatics. I mean, I feel like that here too.
It's crazy that people don't equate cops with bad people when I think it's pretty universal that it makes you scared to be around them.
Yeah.
Like when you get pulled over, you're scared.
If you're driving in the middle of the night and a cop is driving behind you, like your heart rate is going to go up and your cortisol is going to start.
Right. Even if they just drive past you the other way, you're like, are they going to turn around?
Yeah, that's true.
Like, even though I'm not doing anything wrong?
Yeah. And anyways.
But still people are like, oh, they're great.
Yep. It doesn't make any sense.
Nope.
Like the first day I met Ian, it was at a outdoor protest type thing they were doing where they're just basically hanging out in downtown Keene, but it was a protest because it was during COVID and you weren't supposed to gather in groups of more than 10 people. Something like that. Or like something about...
Because once you have an 11th person, everyone's immediately going to get COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something stupid like that. Maybe that wasn't the exact rule was that they were breaking, but they were breaking a rule by hanging out downtown. And me and my friends got there to hang out with them. And not too long into it, somebody's getting like harassed by a cop down the street. So Ian's like, let's go film them. So we all go. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And so we're filming the cops and the cops are talking so cordially with Ian. I was almost like, okay, this is creepy. Why are they nice to you? And the only thing if Ari was here, she has like stories of the same kind of. It's like they've been almost like trained by Free Staters here, especially in Keene. Nice. It's not really that they're being nice. In fact, they were being purposely like
overly polite so that you can't say they did anything wrong.
Well, being like, hey, Mr. Freeman, yep, we're just pulling him over for blah, blah, blah. It's almost like condescending. Like, it's like, he's like, you really think you're doing something, aren't you, Mr. Freeman? Well, look at this. I'm not even doing something that bad. I'm not even going to shoot him. I'm just writing him up for blah, blah, blah. And it's like,
I'm
it
not
still
even going to
creeped me
shoot
out.
him.
It still really creeped me out at the time because I was like, what is going on here? But that's all I'm trying to say. I think there is a difference between the cops here, especially in cities where they're really used to it, than in almost any other state.
The worst cops I ever dealt with was in Washington State. Yeah.
I've never been there.
They were awful.
I have a friend who she moved out of Washington State because there was like somebody that was murdered by a cop in their in their apartment complex, and like they were all around when it happened, and like the way that they like got harassed by the department after that to like keep quiet and
Shut
stuff.
up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it in Seattle?
I don't know.
The Seattle police department was like, I don't know if it still is because I haven't lived there in a long time, but they were like really, really corrupt and terrible and like violent towards people and interactions. It was awful.
I'm just never surprised when I hear that about like any police office, police group in a city. Like even Manchester, New Hampshire is notoriously bad.
Yeah. And people are like, oh, well, they're stressed out and blah, 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 blah. I don't care.
Yeah.
That's the job you took on. If you didn't think you could handle it, then maybe you shouldn't be doing it. And if you took the job and you found out you couldn't handle it and it's bad for your mental health, maybe you should quit.
Nurses, I don't really hear about them killing people on purpose. Like,
well, nurses don't get shot at either. But like,
but they actually do get attacked. Like
they do get attacked.
Nikki's told me really scary stories.
Yeah. I used to be like a bus monitor for, the mentally challenged.
What is that?
Like you would ride on the bus with them to their day program and make sure they don't like hurt themselves and stuff like that. Or
that
like
sounds
if
scary.
If they have a seizure or whatever, you gotta like help them. So I used to do that when I was like a young person, and like I've been attacked and I didn't shoot anyone.
Yeah. Or go way overboard, like
punch him in the face
back.
or something. Like I didn't do anything like that.
Even like not substitutes, but like teachers for mentally ill kids get punched and stuff like that. I had a friend whose mom got punched by a kid, but it's like you can't get mad at them because he's literally like completely retarded. Not
and
like a little bit.
You know that these are things that you might have to deal with when you take this job.
Yeah, and it still like depressed her, and she like had to take a long time off and stuff. But you don't just lose your marbles and kill the person.
Right.
Yeah. I just don't think that's an excuse either. That, oh, well, they're stressed out because they live in a city. Well, or they work in a city.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Or that they're a cop. Like, just don't take the job then.
Yeah. They shouldn't have made it past any kind of screening for who can handle this job.
Mm-hmm. Like there was that cop who, with the acorn that hit the roof of the car and he freaked out and said that there was a shooter. Like these people should not be officers. Why are you so scared? Why are you doing a job that you're so scared of? Don't do that job.
Yeah, that's so true.
I wouldn't go to a job if every day I went there and was terrified for my life.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know. I was going to say, and it's one thing if you're terrified for your life of nothing and it's like ridiculous, but if you're like really scared because like you could actually hurt somebody, I think that's even worse because it's like you don't trust yourself to not hurt somebody. But actually I don't think they care about that.
No, they just don't want to get hurt.
They use that as an excuse though, because they're always saying like, well, we have a lot of responsibility, like our jobs take more responsibility because, well, the reason I brought it up in that angle is because that's what they use to not have any responsibility in court. Their thing is like, well, if a cop makes a mistake, it could kill somebody. And if you want anybody to take that job, they have to be exempt from it in court.
No.
What do they call that?
Qualified immunity.
You're right. Yeah.
Like you see these videos of them like shooting people. They didn't use a taser. They didn't use like non-lethal bean bags or any of that stuff that they have.
Berna.
Any of the things that they have to de-escalate the situation, non-lethally.
Yeah.
They just shoot them.
Yep, that's so true.
I've seen videos of them shooting people in the back that were running away. Like, it's not because you were scared you were going to hurt somebody.
Yep, it's not. And it's like, if they have like bear spray, there's no way like there's like anybody that you're going to encounter that's going to be like not stopped by that.
Sometimes, like meth heads.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But then it's like you try both.
Yeah, like if those things fail, then maybe it's a a legit shooting that had to happen to stop whatever situation was going on. But they don't even try those things first. A lot of the time, they just shoot people.
And the idea that we're only complaining about like, a situation where a meth head was like 5 feet from a cop and ran towards him and he shot him. No, if that was like all that was happening, like it'd be a lot more rare than the amount of people that get killed by police, and it'd be at least a little understandable. Like, they really only had one shot to do something. They had to make a rash decision. There was a meth head 5 feet from them with a knife. That if that was like all we were seeing, I think it'd be really mean and over the top for us to be saying like, all cops are bastards because of that.
Right. No, but like, do you remember that video? The woman who was like, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus, and threw the pot of water at the cops.
I heard.
And the cop shot her.
I remember a lady saying that and stuff, but I don't think I saw this full story actually.
Like they could have just backed up. They could have backed up. They could have used a taser on her. They could have done a lot of things.
Was it hot water or just regular water?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't even know if she threw it at them. The video is not great. She could have just dropped it when she was shot.
And she was like out of her mind?
I don't know exactly. I don't even know if she meant to throw it at them. She could have just... Like, it was such a weird interaction. It was totally fine and calm at first. But when they got there, she was like... I don't feel safe with this officer, the one that shot her.
Whoa.
When they first got there, and she was like called, she asked for her phone so she could call somebody because she didn't feel safe. And like the whole time she didn't feel safe around this guy, and then he shot her.
That's really scary. That almost makes me feel like even if she was crazy, like maybe she had like some kind of like
maybe she
sensitivity. Like I listened to this ghost story from that person you recommended, Loie Lane. And she reviewed like a bunch of them. Like that's basically what she does, is review a bunch of little videos. And I would recommend them if you like haunted stuff, just like I always.
She does a great job of putting together compilations.
She does. And I always think about like, I bet there's a bunch of like good scary stuff on TikTok, but that would be so complicated to go try to find it myself, or at least like a good amount of work. And she does these compilations. But one of the ones she's covered was a story about this EMT lady that used to be EMT, or at least she's telling a story that happened a while ago, where the woman that she picked up was like out of her mind and she had to move her into a new place. And the lady was saying like, listen, I see spirits and stuff. Don't leave me here. And I was just like, obviously that woman didn't do anything wrong because she's like an EMT, that's her job. And she the patient had to be moved from one home to another. But what the heck? Like, what are you doing? I just thought of that because you're saying, like, the lady was saying, I don't feel comfortable with him. For all we know, she's, like, sensitive like that. She knew something isn't right with that guy.
I mean, have you ever met somebody and you're immediately uncomfortable around them?
There's that, too, yeah.
I have, lots of times.
And it could have just totally
and it ends up being that person is, like, a dangerous person.
Yeah.
All the time.
That's definitely true.
Yeah.
So, all that was just, we brought up cops because I called Florida Police State because they try to say that there are competition in New Hampshire, and New Hampshire's not really the free state. It's actually Florida, and I just don't believe it. I'm not convinced. They always end up number 2 in all of the freedom in the 50 states things. But this article from Wall Street Journal is saying hurricanes have driven up the cost and headaches of living in Sunshine State, and some Floridians are reaching their breaking point. And like, seriously, how? I wouldn't be able to live in a place that had a crazy life-changing hurricane where you had to take a forced vacation
every year,
once a year at the very least.
Yeah, every year.
It's crazy. I've always thought that ever since I was a kid. I was like, wait, so hurricane season, are you guys saying that there's like hurricanes every single year in Florida? I mean, there's other places too that are less likely to get hit, but even Houston, I wouldn't live in Houston because of it.
That's why I don't understand people who live in Tornado Alley. Never.
603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up. Call in with whatever is on your mind. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
Is it cheaper on eBay? You can find out in a flash. Literally. I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. Before you pay retail for new, eBay has a quick way to save big on new to you for the same item or something similar. Try this. This is very cool. As you shop, open the free eBay app on your smartphone, then tap the search bar. look for the camera icon and point your phone at the item you're interested in and snap a photo. The app will search eBay and list look-alike items for sale. Now, bear in mind, artificial intelligence is matching pictures, not exact items. So you'll want to read the specs and note the condition of the item, etc. But if you're looking for a book or DVD, you're better off searching the usual way by title. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks on the blog at andyoucanquoteme.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nina Maria Potts with a roundup of the week's top stories. In the Middle East, Israel has said it's conducting a thorough review after the deaths of 2 UN peacekeepers on Friday in southern Lebanon. UN peacekeepers in Lebanon warned of very serious risks after the explosions. Israel and Hezbollah have continued in southern Lebanon since last week to clash when Israel embarked on a so-called targeted incursion into Lebanon against the Iran-backed Lebanese militant group. Friday's episode came after peacekeeping mission UNIFIL said its positions had been reportedly hit amid international condemnation of Israel on Thursday. On Friday, Hezbollah said it fired rockets at Israeli troops as the clashes continue. Jody Jacobs reports from the United Nations in New York.
The United Nations now increasingly concerned about the security of the Blue Helmets in southern Lebanon. This after it reported another explosion at its peacekeeping headquarters, the second time in the last 48 hours. 2 peacekeepers were injured and have now been hospitalized. The UN also reports that several walls at one of its positions fell when an IDF Caterpillar tank hit the perimeter, while others moved closer to the peacekeeping post. While the peacekeepers remained in position, the UN says these incidents again put the Blue Helmets, who are serving in South Lebanon at the request of the Security Council, at very serious risks. Attacks against UN peacekeepers are a grave violation of international law and legally binding Security Council resolutions. Jody Jacobs, New York.
At least 16 people are now known to have died in Florida after Hurricane Milton swept across the state this week. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said search and rescue efforts are ongoing. Milton made landfall on Wednesday night as a powerful Category 3 hurricane, bringing torrential rain, powerful winds and tornadoes. Officials in Clearwater in Florida say more than 500 people had to be rescued from a flooded apartment complex on Thursday in the wake of the storm.
State search and rescue teams across the state have continued to work around the clock to successfully execute rescue missions of individuals as well as a lot of pets on the West Coast, as well as from the destruction from the tornadoes in other parts of the state. You already have 1.6 million accounts have been restored in the state of Florida.
This week, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken condemned Beijing's increasingly dangerous actions in the South China Sea and voiced support for freedom of navigation. Laura Westbrook has more.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken had strong words for Southeast Asian leaders. He said the U.S. was concerned about China's dangerous and unlawful actions in the South China Sea, which have injured people, harmed vessels, and contradicts commitments to peaceful resolution of disputes.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number. We have a caller on the line, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number to call to get in on the conversation with us. And Free Talk Live is brought to you by LibertyMinded.com. Official Free Talk Live gear like t-shirts and hoodies are available at LibertyMinded.com. Plus, you'll find a unique collection of cool and funny Liberty-oriented clothing at LibertyMinded.com. That's LibertyMinded.com. And with you on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
And Lori. And they have a really comfortable looking Free Talk Live hoodie on libertyminded.com.
I am way more of a zip up type person, and I have both. But I mean, I like both of them. I'm just way more of a zip up person.
I feel like zip ups feel better, but pullovers look better.
Yeah, I agree that I like the look more of pullovers, but I just feel so restricted, like around the shoulders and stuff. But it's not just specifically that jacket or anything. That's like all pullovers for me, so take that with a grain of salt. But they have both. We have a caller on the line, Sarah in New Mexico. Sarah is the one we were talking about at the beginning of the show, saying that she's a communist. Sarah, what's on your mind?
Did you say David from New Mexico called in?
No, we were talking about communists at the beginning of the show, and we're talking about that communists believe that the government is here to help us just from the goodness of their heart, so we referenced you.
Oh, yeah, as a community, it's supposed to share, but I called to say that New Mexico is a for-sure state for Kamala Harris. They've already had the predictions out. So they don't... Yeah, and then so they don't... She doesn't have to come trying to, like, sway us. We're not a swing state or anything like that.
It's because you've been doing your part, Sarah.
I guess so. I've been really trying hard, you know. So, but how do they make these predictions? We had like 9,000 people in our state vote the very first day that it opened up. So 9,000 people from our state voted, and then so it's amazing. So they could project. How could they get a pretty good projection? Is it the polling or how many people?
I don't know. I was going to ask you, Sarah. I thought when you were saying that the predictions came out, I thought you were going to tell us where you got the numbers, because I don't know. Were people actually already voting, and they're just?
Oh yeah.
So okay, I guess they're just getting it based off of like percentage of how many of those people voted for Kamala Harris or whatever. I guess they take that percentage and just do some math, and they see that a big percentage of people are voting for her.
Well, okay, so we have we're into the 4 days of early voting. So on the first day, we had 9,000 people in our entire state come out. And in 3 days, we had like 1,000 people just in our county. So is that how they kind of project, like that percentage? Like if like 70% voted in favor?
I don't know anything about voting because I don't believe in it. So
I've never heard of this, honestly. I didn't know that they will like go ahead and tell you what percentage of people voted for what candidate in early voting. I honestly didn't even know early voting started this early. It seems pretty early to me. It's like almost a month early. Honestly, I don't know, but that sounds accurate. If they said, for example, 70% of people who voted early voted for Kamala Harris, I would say it's a pretty good prediction that New Hampshire or New Mexico would vote for her.
Yeah, maybe. Unless those people were just really excited to go vote for Kamala.
That's true.
They had like so and so voted for Republicans, so many. They voted for that. The Democrats were like 8,000, and the Republicans were only 1,900. You know, and then all the other ones, like libertarian parties, were like 6%, 3%. They already had a breakdown already, but they stopped announcing the statistics for now, you know, the stats. But I guess that's how they project, and they could just see how the projection, I mean, you know, like how much people are coming out now, how big it's going to be. And they already had like 40,000 requests for absentee ballots in our state. That's how many, I think, I don't know if that's in our county or the entire state. That's how many people already requested it. That's going to be mailed out.
Why do people get to vote early? Like, could anyone go to the early voting?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I think the other early voting, there's other states that started like last month. There was two other states that had early voting, like Minnesota were doing it like last week of September.
Interesting.
So a lot of states, so we've always had like 28 days prior to voting. So right now we just have one place open. But this 19, they're going to open up 20 places, and that's when everybody shows up because it's close to the work and school, and then the election day. But I'm trying to really get out to get everybody rounded up. So
Wait, are you saying there's only one place to vote in all of New Mexico, or just one place to vote in Albuquerque?
Each county.
Oh.
Each county has one place to vote, and they open up like 20 places in each county later. So each county, I don't know how many counties there are, but they only have one place open to vote. But just in our county, 1,000 people voted in 3 days. The first day it was 300. So, so that's, I've been doing a lot of work trying to get in on our local radio. So I've been announcing that 243 vote number, and then they kind of always try to shut me up about it. Because it brings out the dumb voters.
Who's trying to shut you up?
Oh, the host. It's just too easy. They want you to go on the website, smart enough to do that, and look it up yourself. You know what I mean? They don't want me to announce the phone number, especially the one that's easy to remember, 243.
Oh, I thought you meant the other Free Talk Live hosts are doing that. I was like kind of surprised, but I was... So whenever you call into other radio stations, they're trying to shut you up and not let you talk about that? That's honestly, it's stupid.
That's correct. That's correct. It's a form of voter suppression. All they announce, it's a form, because I barely announced that 15th and Lomas, the clerk annex address, and then I could not get the phone number in, or barely I could not explain anything, and the hours or anything. He shut me up, right, just like that.
Yeah, that's why Ian started Free Talk Live, because all these other radio stations that claim to be open phones, they're so controlled. They screen people beforehand, and they won't let you on if you're not on topic, for example, or if your topic is something they don't want people to hear about. That's what I like about Free Talk Live.
And they're pretty dismissive, too, and kind of rude
to
people.
Yeah. So
we are, too, sometimes.
Yeah.
But I'm more excited. What matters to me in this election is that our senator that goes to our Santa Fe roundhouse that govern our state. So she's on the ballot, and those are the ones that's going to make state laws that I'm living here. And then the two people that are really contested, they're fighting over the Heinrich and then the Minchie, and then the Vasquez and the what's the other one? Yvette Herald. Because it's a really big deal to both parties nationally. They're fighting over the seat in the Senate, and they're fighting over that seat in the House of Representatives. Because when it comes to voting, they really need that spot, that person. So, I mean, it's amazing how much commercials I've been being aired, and they're very expensive. And obviously, they're paid for by the other people in other states that pay for these TV commercials. And it's not the New Mexico Democratic Party that they don't have money to do it. So it's a big deal. But that's important to me. But as far as the presidential, we only got 5 electoral votes. For presidential, we don't really count. We don't decide nothing. But here's the thing: if Kamala gets elected,
everything's going to be terrible.
Well, the thing is, we're going to get a lot of favors from her because our state's going to be voting for her, right? We're going to be for her, so she's going to look at us and be like, "Well, what am I going to do for her? At least she, they voted for me. That's the thing." I was told that when Bush got elected, all of the blue states got choked with funding and all that. That's what. Oh yeah. That's what I found out. Like Massachusetts got hung by the Bushes when they were president.
What does that mean? But they got what by the Bushes?
Like they didn't get funding.
Right. They got choked out. All the blue states when he was president,
Massachusetts is one of the not freest. I would say one of the richest states.
Mm-hmm. Right. What do they need funding for?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know. They still need federal funding that comes down from the president, and they were all choked out.
The thing is, people know the presidential election's going on. Everyone knows that. I don't think a large percentage of Americans don't know that the presidential election's happening soon. That would be shocking.
Right. You can't go anywhere or do anything or visit any space online without seeing something about it.
Yeah.
Like everywhere.
I would be like shocked if anyone told me they didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
That's never happened.
Right. Like someone living in the woods for the last 30 years.
Lucky.
And they'd be like, did you hear about Kamala and Trump? I saw something the other day complaining about how people call her by her first name and call all the male politicians by their last names.
I wondered if that's going to what's the word? I just like predicted what you're saying because I said Kamala the other day, but I said Trump. So I said in the same sentence Trump and Kamala, and I was like, is that going to be somehow construed as offensive? Because I don't know what it is that makes me want to call her Kamala and not Harris.
Because that's the way that it's been portrayed. Because she's like, she's so kooky and like relatable. Just call her by her first name.
Yeah.
And then people are like, that's offensive. And it's like misogynistic and sexist because you're not referring to her by her last name.
I swear her like signs and stuff don't just say Harris most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, they've been saying that her father was a socialist communist professor. Is that what they accused her of? Right. That's what Trump accused her. And then actually, I believe it. He was Jamaican. See, I had Jamaican friends, and they told me that they were communist socialists. Okay, and what's amazing is that I asked them, I said, why was that in Jamaica have that economic crisis? What happens is they turned communist. So they had kind of like a choke out, like an embargo, and it made their economy crash for a while, a long time ago. And I asked them why that happened to them, because they stopped. The U.S. government did something like in stopping the trade or something, but they told me that they were communist socialists. So that explains why there are so many Jamaicans. When I see the Canadian show, so many Jamaican restaurants up in Canada, actually.
Did you just admit
that is actually true?
Did you just admit that their economy crashed because of communism?
I didn't catch that.
Right. Well, what happens is that if you say that you declare like your socialist communist thing, what happens is that they do like similar like sanctions, right? The U.S. for
I see.
example,
She's blaming America.
She's blaming America.
I see. I thought she was just saying
that communism doesn't work.
Yeah,
which would be the more accurate way to put all of that.
She always blames not tariffs. What's the word? Sanctions. She always says that the only reason Cuba isn't like thriving is America sanctioning them, which I also am against sanctions against Cuba, Russia, anything like that.
If we lived in a communist society and all of your work was going to go to other people, would you do your very best?
No.
Or
if I was going to get paid the exact same and I worked like a doctor and they worked like a grocery store clerk, I'd be a little jaded and not try my best.
I would do the absolute bare minimum because that's what I'm getting.
Yep.
So that's what I would do. And that's
but
almost everybody, Sarah.
Well, I mean, think about it. Do you think this ultimate capitalism just extorting people's money for drugs that they need? I mean, to no limits with Ozempic, Wegovy, and all these insulin prices. Do you think that's the right moral way to be? Do you think as a Christian people are taught to give and to help other people? Do you think that coincides with a Christian value?
Are you under the impression that everybody is a Christian?
Well, there's that. But also, I'm also totally understanding and I accept the fact that it's possible to be an immoral capitalist, that it's possible for people to sell stuff that's bad for people and not care, or charge way more because of the fact that they just can get away with it. But like, at least if you get rid of government regulations, you give people the ability to check these immoral capitalists.
So here's the thing, Sarah, with a free market. If you have this drug that people need, and the only way that they can buy it is if they have hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy this drug, no one's going to buy it, and then you're not going to have any customers. The reason that they charge so much right now is because of government protections, which gives them the ability to charge whatever they want because the insurance will pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the insulin prices that Kamala talked about? $35. Is that what they're saying is the copay?
I truly don't know. I'm not diabetic. I just don't know. I never looked into it.
But the government,
I'm sure they're too high.
they're going to regulate it so that people can afford it. People do need it. And Barney mentioned that it's their fault for having all these sugars and all these that they're fat. It's their fault that they have problems. But you know what?
I didn't
when
say
the smokers are here, I understand you. But here's the smokers that have killed themselves their whole life. If they need oxygen, you know what? We pay for it.
But I never said anything like that. She thinks that I said, "Oh, well, it's their fault for being fat." I didn't say that. That's like the heartless stereotype, and I don't feel that way. I feel like people are lied to about their health, and that in reality, eating things like seed oils that straight up the doctors will tell you, make sure you get canola oil instead of butter. It's heart healthy. I don't really blame people for just being sick in the United States because they're totally brainwashed and also lied to. And on top of that, I don't think that that's the heart of the problem here. The problem here is that there could be people finding ways to do these things cheaper that are not allowed into the market because of the government, and that the government keeps prices high by all of the regulations that people working in that industry have to go through anyway, and that people aren't even allowed to try experimental things unless the FDA has approved it, and people will go to jail if they start giving advice that doesn't lead to the patient buying things that the government wants them to buy so they make more money, because politicians and the government in general are, they have their hands in the pockets of these companies, like they have stocks where they're making money when people pay $30 or whatever you're saying for insulin shots, etc.
I'll be the heartless one. It is your fault if you're fat.
No, I do think it's your fault if you're fat.
Not that makes you the worst person on earth and you should die or anything. But it is your fault. It's because of you are not taking care of your body properly, and it's your responsibility to do that because it's your body. It's your responsibility to learn how to do that because you are responsible for your own self.
I think that it's definitely more their fault than anyone else's, but I also think, well, people are literally being lied to.
I think that people are being lied to.
Right.
People will go like, I'm going to get in charge of my health, and they'll start looking stuff up, and it's all lies.
Yes.
It's like, I feel lucky that I've run into some of the information that I have, and it's been literally luck.
Well, I saw this thing the other day talking about how we live in a information apocalypse now, which that is the perfect phrasing for it. We live in an information apocalypse where trying to get proper information on things is harder than it ever has been in my life. You can't find real facts without knowing how to do so. It's not just an easy, simple thing anymore where you can just search something and you get real, actual facts. Now you have to dig through all this clickbait and all these blogs and all these different articles about contradictory information, and everything's bad for you and everything's good for you, and it's great to be fat and it's not great to be fat, and everything is so overwhelmingly obfuscated that it's impossible to know what's going on unless you are educated. That's why the solution to every problem is education.
Right, being educated.
Yeah.
You know what? It might. I would say that it might be their fault, but maybe they don't know any better. But still, if they do have health crises, these drugs should be available to them. And then these capitalists being so greedy, only people that could get these drugs is like Magic Johnson. People with money, they'll get these drugs and live. All the poor people are just going to die off because they cannot afford it.
It's because
that's greed.
I just
Sarah,
don't believe
it's because of a problem the government created by giving all of these governmental protections to the pharmaceutical companies and the insurance companies, and getting everybody in bed together and making deals with each other. And now these companies can charge whatever they want because Medicaid and Medicare will pay for it. So they do charge whatever they want because they still have business. If these government protections didn't exist, these companies wouldn't be able to charge such exorbitant prices because nobody would be able to pay for it and they wouldn't have customers.
Thank you for the call, Sarah. I feel like we both, explained that to her, and she just doesn't want to hear it. And it's kind of it's almost it never makes me mad because I feel like Sarah's just getting mad at Sarah is getting mad at a force of nature, being mad at a hurricane for breaking your house, because it's she literally just sits here and calls us immoral while being one of the least moral people I know, who will straight up admit that, oh, if I was in charge, I would put people in prison for having too much money and take their money. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. We even said, would you let the government kill them for it? And she said, yeah.
I don't
take
get
their stuff.
I don't get mad at Sarah because every few calls I see a glimmer of of these things that we tell her shine through, and one of these days it's just going to click.
I don't think so. I don't know.
I can hope. I can hope and dream. Don't crush my dreams.
That's good. That's a nice thing to do, I guess. I
Thanks.
just don't. I've never thought of it like that. I feel like it's more like every once in a while she seems to understand something, but it's only when it somehow makes the point she's trying to make.
Every year on my birthday, when I blow out my candles, I'm like, please let Sarah gain awareness.
So we have another caller on the line, Turd Ferguson in Pennsylvania. You're on Free Talk Live. What's in your mind?
Yeah, so basically I can't stand Sarah's calls these days, and I never really could, but I mean, they've just been getting progressively worse and worse as the years have gone by. And as a matter of fact, the last 2 weeks of calls made me want to put a bullet through my brain from her. I think
You're
last
weak,
week
then.
she called up.
We've dealt with her
Well-
for I don't know how many years.
I can't do it. But last week she called about Ozempic. And
Yeah, she
how
keeps
the
calling it
government-
something wrong. I can't remember how she's saying it. She's like
Ozempi.
Because there's a Wegovy, and she mixes those together or something like that.
Wegempic and Ozempi.
Ozempi.
Well, I can't stand that she. I mean, first of all, let's just get this out of the way first. Ozempic is a terrible drug.
Yeah.
I mean, it's totally screwing up the microbiomes of the people, the gut microbiomes of the people who take it. It's destroying their guts, their digestive health.
Oh, that's
and they took away Katy Perry's boobs from us.
That's
so
true.
there is nothing.
Hey, there's no
good
proof that she's on that.
no
Everyone's on
proof?
it now.
She didn't come out and say she's on it, so you're making an assumption.
Well,
I've heard that it's giving people like basically gut stasis.
Whoa.
So like they can't properly digest
So, like,
things
stuff isn't
anymore.
moving?
So like they're not absorbing the food properly.
That's so freaking terrible. I watched a video of this girl. The thing is, I just watch her videos from time to time because of spooky stuff, but honestly, she's really annoying, so I don't know why I do it. But her name is Selena Spooky Boo.
Oh yeah, I
And
know who she is.
You know who she is?
Yeah.
Yeah, she annoys me a lot, but
Yeah.
I watched her video one day that she was talking about getting off Ozempic and how much it messed her up for life. Mm-hmm. And I was like,
Yeah, people are
whoa.
taking it to
And she's
lose
still
weight
fat.
instead of just like, eating proper food and like moving their body around.
And her doctor gave it to her for that, not because she's a diabetic, because she's
To
not.
lose weight.
Her doctor gave it to her to lose weight.
Yeah.
And I was like, but until I watched that, I didn't know people were doing that. I thought that was like kind of a joke or something.
No, yeah, tons of people. Like it's a thing now. That Wegovy one was created as like specifically for weight loss instead of being for diabetics.
Wow.
Yeah. But
Yeah, I
it's
think they're
terrible.
all horrible. And yeah, I think I also think that now that we've gotten the fact that it's just terrible for the human body out of the way. And yeah, I'll hold on the line.
Okay, so
after the break.
more turd when we come back from the break and more Free Talk Live. It's Free Talk Live 603-283-6160. If you have something you want to bring up, that's 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up.
Some of you have wanted to support Free Talk Live's mission on a monthly basis, but don't want to support Patreon. Now we have an alternative that also helps our premier streaming platform, Odyssey. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join at the top of the channel. You can subscribe for $5 per month, and unlike other subscription services, Odyssey adds their processing fee on top, so it'll cost a little over $5 per month, but Free Talk Live will receive the entire amount you pledged. Higher donation tiers are available if you're feeling so inspired. You'll get a special membership badge that's visible in the Odyssey chat room, and if we get enough supporters, we may enable members-only chat. This new subscription method is a great way to decentralize our direct listener support away from just Patreon and also support a libertarian-run business, Odyssey. Please visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join to subscribe to our Odyssey channel and help support spreading our message around the planet. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join today.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nina Maria Potts with a roundup of the week's top stories. In the Middle East, Israel has said it's conducting a thorough review after the deaths of 2 UN peacekeepers on Friday in southern Lebanon. UN peacekeepers in Lebanon warned of very serious risks after the explosions. Israel and Hezbollah have continued in southern Lebanon since last week to clash when Israel embarked on a so-called targeted incursion into Lebanon against the Iran-backed Lebanese militant group. Friday's episode came after peacekeeping mission UNIFIL said its positions had been reportedly hit amid international condemnation of Israel on Thursday. On Friday, Hezbollah said it fired rockets at Israeli troops as the clashes continue. Jody Jacobs reports from the United Nations in New York.
The United Nations now increasingly concerned about the security of the Blue Helmets in southern Lebanon. This after it reported another explosion at its peacekeeping headquarters, the second time in the last 48 hours. 2 peacekeepers were injured and have now been hospitalized. The UN also reports that several walls at one of its positions fell when an IDF Caterpillar tank hit the perimeter, while others moved closer to the peacekeeping post. While the peacekeepers remained in position, the UN says these incidents again put the Blue Helmets, who are serving in South Lebanon at the request of the Security Council, at very serious risks. Attacks against UN peacekeepers are a grave violation of international law and legally binding Security Council resolutions. Jody Jacobs, New York.
At least 16 people are now known to have died in Florida after Hurricane Milton swept across the state this week. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said search and rescue efforts are ongoing. Milton made landfall on Wednesday night as a powerful Category 3 hurricane, bringing torrential rain, powerful winds and tornadoes. Officials in Clearwater in Florida say more than 500 people had to be rescued from a flooded apartment complex on Thursday in the wake of the storm.
State search and rescue teams across the state have continued to work around the clock to successfully execute rescue missions of individuals as well as a lot of pets on the West Coast, as well as from the destruction from the tornadoes in other parts of the state. So the storm left, the outer bands of the storm left the state yesterday afternoon, and yet you already have 1.6 million accounts have been restored in the state of Florida.
This week, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken condemned Beijing's increasingly dangerous actions in the South China Sea and voiced support for freedom of navigation. Laura Westbrook has more.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken had strong words for Southeast Asian leaders. He said the U.S. was concerned about China's dangerous and unlawful actions in the South China Sea, which have injured people, harmed vessels, and contradicts commitments to peaceful resolution of disputes. Laura Westbrook, Hong Kong.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky travelled to Germany as part of a multi-country tour across Europe this week. He's seeking access to long-range missiles, something so far Germany has refused. From Berlin, Trent Murray has more.
President Zelensky had been hoping to meet President Biden here in Germany, but the White House announced the president was postponing his trip to Europe to deal with Hurricane Milton. For his part, President Zelensky has travelled to London, Paris, Rome and now Berlin, where he's pushed European allies for more support in his country's defence against Russia. Trent Murray, Berlin.
Italy's government has announced that controversial new migrant processing centres in Albania are now operational. Up to 3,000 migrants will pass through the centres every month from now on, while their applications for asylum in Italy are being processed. Giles Gibson reports from Rome.
Almost a year since the Italian government announced a deal to build 2 migrant processing centres in Albania at a cost of more than $700 million, they're now officially open. Men arriving in Italy by irregular routes will be taken to Albania while their asylum applications are being evaluated. Women and children will still be taken to existing facilities in Italy. Critics have accused Giorgia Meloni's government of creating an Italian Guantanamo and of transporting human beings like packages. It's not clear at this stage when the first migrants will be transferred to the new facilities.
And a reminder now of the week's top story. In the Middle East, Israel has said it's conducting a thorough review after the deaths of 2 UN peacekeepers on Friday. And that's the roundup of the week's top stories. From Washington, I'm Nina Maria Potts reporting.
The total loser's corpse contained no traces of drugs or alcohol, and a superstitious Delta Airlines adds busty mermaids to its plane noses. My friend, you look like you are in need of the world's finest internet news summaries. Please come in and warm yourself by the fire of knowledge. This is The Onion Week in Review. A new law passed in Colorado this week will allow residents with a doctor's prescription to purchase medicinal fireworks, saying that those in need of stargazers, firecrackers, and Galleria highlights now need only obtain a doctor's prescription. State officials expressed hope that the law would ease the suffering of those in need of huge, dazzling explosions. And in this week's op-ed pages, a man notes that, like it or not, we all die, then get dug up and molested. In other news, white male privilege is squandered on a job at Best Buy, and a local TCBY has missed the past 2 logo changes. Well, that's it for now. Goodbyes are bittersweet, my love, so I'll only tell you, for more, keep checking theonion.com.
This is the Onion News Network.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number. That's 603-283-6160. And I'd like to thank Melody for being an amplifier with us here at Free Talk Live. That means that Melody went to amps.freetalklive.com and signed up to support the show. AMPS stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. Thanks to Melody and everyone who supports us. Again, that's amps.freetalklive.com if you'd like to check out the perks and benefits of becoming an amplifier. All of us really appreciate everybody who is an amplifier with us here at Free Talk Live, so thank you again to Melody. And if you'd like to check that out, you can go to amps.freetalklive.com. With you on the show tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
And Lori.
And we have Turd Ferguson in Pennsylvania on the line. Turd, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Yeah, so as I was saying before the break, so obviously Ozempic, and anyone that's looked into it, anyone that's studied it for more than 5 seconds and doesn't just take the medical establishment, Dr. Fauci's word as the Holy Bible, and who's investigated the subject for more than 5 seconds knows that this drug is terrible for you. But what I even have sort of more of a problem with, and I've had this conversation, similar conversation on the show before, is that Sarah seems like she is entitled, for lack of a better word, to the intellectual property of other people.
Yeah,
and I have a real problem with that.
People's drug that they created or what have you.
Right. People produce things because they assume that they're going to get a return on investment of that production. They organize land, labor, and capital to make a profit. And if Sarah doesn't like that, there are plenty of countries that she can move to that she'll be happier, where they just kind of they let these free market properties that assume they're going to make a profit from what they produce.
Do you remember
they let them go ahead.
Turd, do you remember why Sarah said that she wouldn't move to Cuba? It's like, we've definitely asked her that before. Like, Sarah, if it's so great, why don't you move to Cuba? And she has some excuse.
I don't remember why, but I'm assuming it's because life sucks in these communist countries, and life doesn't suck in capitalist countries. And so Sarah, like all leftists, wants to have their cake and eat it too. And that's why. See, that's why nobody takes leftism seriously in the modern world. It's because they all want to have their cake and eat it too, and you can't do both. It just physically doesn't work.
Unfortunately, a lot of people take them seriously.
Yeah, they do until you tell them that they'll be happier in a place with a country that already has what they want, and then they don't want to move there. So that's kind of the moment where people are just kind of dumbfounded in the conversations with them, because if there's already a place that exists that has what you want, but you don't want to move there, how am I supposed to take you seriously? It would be like if there was a country that forced all sexy women to walk around naked and I didn't want to move there, but yet I talked about how great something like that would be. You wouldn't take me very seriously. So that's why. But it's also a problem that when Novo Nordisk invented Ozempic, they invented it assuming that intellectual property laws would protect them and protect their investment and protect the money and that they put into the product for research and development to create the product. And if they do that, and the American federal government just says, "Oh, well, too bad. We're just going to take it from you, and now we're gonna limit how much you can charge for the product." I don't know what incentivizes any other company to do the same thing, because then you've then set a precedent that says it doesn't matter how much money you put into R&D or how much land, labor, and capital you scrounge together to produce something that you think is going to make the world a better place, that the American federal government can just swipe it out from under your feet and either make it for themselves and charge 1 cent for it and put you out of business, or they could just steal your product altogether. And I'd like to know from Sarah, and I know you only allow one call tonight, and I know she doesn't even listen to the show, but if she is, I'd like her to call back in and really answer, like, what is in it for Novo Nordisk if they create this product and they invest the time and the research and development and the land and the labor and the capital to create this product, and then the government just steals it from them. Like what's in it for anyone to invest that money?
She'll
and
just
that's
tell
why we need intellectual property laws. And Sarah is a communist, and if she wants this, if she really wants what she's saying, that she should just go move to an authoritarian country, because she'll be happier there.
She'll just tell you that it's because they care about their community, and so they should be helping their community. I don't even understand. Yeah, I don't even understand her point of view. Like, it's so alien to me to think that anyone should be responsible for anyone else's choices. Like, to come to the size where you need this Wegovy stuff so that you can lose weight is a deliberate choice.
Plus, you don't need it for that.
Right.
I've gone through so many years of my life just eating whatever I want and not being not thinking about how much I weigh or anything like that. And I've never gotten to the point where I've been like, man, I should really go to a doctor and get something so that I can lose weight.
Wow. Yeah. Exactly.
Like it's you have to work at that.
The heaviest I've ever gotten, I just was like, all right, that's it. I still ate like absolute crap, didn't know anything about nutrition, and I was eating like fast food all the time. I felt like I couldn't use my kitchen because I had a roommate that was dirty. It was really annoying. And all I did was say, all right, that's it. I'm going to walk more. And every time I eat like my Wendy's, I'm going to get water instead of soda. And I lost 10 pounds in a month.
Right. There are so many small changes you can do in your life to lose weight. And it takes effort to eat such a surplus of calories to get to a point like that.
Yeah. I don't know how people do it.
Yeah,
and I don't think that anyone is responsible for anyone else's bad choices. I smoke. And if I get cancer from smoking, I'm not going to be like, Bonnie, how dare you not pay for my chemo?
Bonnie.
You know? It's absurd.
Yes. Soda is disgusting, and so is anything with high fructose corn syrup in it. But I would also say that if Sarah's really concerned about like caring for the community and she just wants to care for other people and marshmallows and rainbows, then why doesn't she just stop calling radio shows and instead go invest land, labor, and capital and hard work into a product and just give it away for free.
Yeah,
like,
or why
that's
doesn't
what
she
I would like to see Sarah walk the walk.
Or any leftist. I don't know any leftist doing that.
Why doesn't she get like any job and donate to any cause?
Yeah.
Any amount of money.
Well, because she's bipolar, you guys.
Oh.
Sarah, who's like one of the most like, you can be really mean to her and she doesn't lose her cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you seriously, like, I think Sarah's a good caller because we can like laugh directly at her. And I'm not saying that because I like being mean to her. It's because like she says ridiculous things.
Mm-hmm.
You can laugh at her, talk about how ridiculous it is, and she just goes like, okay, well, whatever. And this is still what I believe anyway. Like, she thinks she's too bipolar to have a job.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody told her when she was young, you're bipolar. A stupid person in a lab coat told her you're bipolar, and now she doesn't work.
This is the future. You could work from your house doing so many different
Yeah.
things and never interact with another person.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just because she wants to be a barnacle.
And I'm not saying that like no one is actually bipolar. Like, you could really be bipolar, but you can find something that you can do.
Sarah's a barnacle.
Exactly.
That's all it is.
Yeah, there's also
This is a bunch
there's
of
also a
barnacles.
medicine that you can take for bipolar disorder, which makes people functioning members of society. And I'm assuming actually that Sarah takes that medicine. And not only that, I'm assuming that she actually gets it for free because
Good
she's
point,
a
yeah.
welfare whore. Yeah, and,
Yeah, maybe she takes that medicine because she doesn't. The thing is, like, I know that that's not the only way to like show your symptoms as a bipolar person. But the thing is, Sarah's like the same person every time she calls. I have one friend that was bipolar. Her mom's bipolar. She's had jobs her whole life. Like, she has a baby and stays home with her baby now, but she has a husband. She has a husband that she can
I'm
keep.
bipolar too, and I don't take any medicine for it, and I'm a productive member of society. And I don't understand why Sarah can't get her ass together enough to not only get a job and get off welfare and stop using other people's resources to pay for her medicine, but also just stop feeling like entitled to other people's intellectual property. And that's all I have to say tonight. So I appreciate you taking my call.
Thank you for the call, turd.
It's because she doesn't want to.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to be a productive member of society. She wants to just leech off of the system because it's easy for her.
And she has said this, people. It's not like we're just being like mean to Sarah and like really she's so disabled and we don't know what it's like. Sarah literally has said like, well, I moved to New Mexico because I get more stuff here for free than if I lived in, I think she used to live in Boston. So I get more stuff for free and I don't want to have to work because I'm bipolar. And it's just ridiculous. Like, I've met at least 2 people in my life that are bipolar that had jobs, and it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense why that would stop you from having a job.
If she can go out, she goes out and does all these things, like stands there and tells people how to vote and stuff like that. She could be using that time to work, but she doesn't want to because then she'll lose her benefits.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, she doesn't want to work because I think she just doesn't want. She wants to get her food and stuff without having to work.
Yeah, she just wants to be able to do whatever she feels like doing that day.
Yep.
Like, wouldn't that be so nice if we all just could do whatever we wanted to do all the time?
Yep.
Perpetual children.
My dad, when I was a kid, I would say like, oh, I don't know what I would be complaining about as literally a kid, but he'd say, well, when you grow up, you gotta just do it. You gotta just do it. And he would say that, and I'd just be like, ugh, he's doing that thing where he just like pretends to. I don't know. I thought he was just making a mean point, or like saying like, you gotta just do it. You gotta. I like that sounds mean, but like he literally meant it. He was like, when I wake up and I don't want to go to work, I just go and I do it. And I don't know if he literally snaps, but like that could be a thing you trigger yourself with to do it, but I'm not joking, it works. When I'm laying there and I don't want to get up and do whatever I have to do, when it's just like there's no real excuse, not like seriously having a real problem or having too many things to do, and I just have this block where I don't want to do a thing, if I remember that and I go like, I'm gonna just do it, then it works. Because that's the thing, that's the only way you get past that stuff.
Pavlovian training.
Yeah, like if you actually do the snap, that could be, or somebody can have something else they do when they do it, like a whistle, I don't know. But literally I do the snap, and it literally helps me like get up and just do things, because it's like you sit there and you convince yourself all these reasons. Like I have a really bad habit of, if I'm late with something, then I get later and later because I get stressed out as soon as I think about how late I am. So if I'm like going somewhere or literally late, like doing something, then like it will get so bad, because every time I like say I'm like 3 days late, I'm like, oh my God, I'm 3 days late doing this. I can't do it right. I can't think about that right now. I'll do it tomorrow. And then it's like weeks later.
I do that with like emails or messages or whatever, or voicemails.
Emails.
Like people will leave me a message somewhere and then I will see it and I won't respond. And then I'll remember later and I'll go back and be like, oh man, it's been so long since I saw that. Now I can't respond because it's been too long.
I did that.
So now I'm just never going to talk to you again, I guess.
I did that recently with somebody who's a really nice guy who like didn't do anything wrong to me. I just like saw his voicemail and he said, hey, I'm trying to call you because I got to talk to you about something. And it was just that I was asleep when he called. And I was like, gotta call him back today or gotta text him. And then like seriously over a month went by and I would think about it from time to time and literally think, ugh, it's so late now.
Right,
So
it's been so long.
the other day I just sent a text that said, hey, and I explained exactly like the truth that every time I thought about it, I felt bad that it was too late. And then, so now I'm texting you now, as I said. And he was like, not a big deal. You know, like it's always like that. It's almost always like that. You just do it and it's fine.
Yep, that's usually what I do too. I'll like message back my friend and be like, I'm a terrible friend. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm here now. Hi.
Oh my God. Emails are the worst too. Oh, it looks like we have a caller. Jet, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Well, you know, every time I call, I bring up the utmost and relevant, salient topics. You know, so I want to do that tonight again. I was looking up at the moon, and you know how the moon, when the Earth is passing by it, and it creates a crescent shape.
My kids call it the croissant moon.
Why?
Yeah.
Yeah, why is it that when it gets to the half moon, it's not rounded half?
What do you mean?
I don't know. I just well, each side, you know, is a crescent, but when a half moon is half, in other words, the Earth has round edges, right? So it should, you know, the further it progresses into it, should look more like a cookie. Somebody took a bite out of a cookie, not halfway.
Not a
anyway,
straight line in the middle. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. Is that what it is? It's the light of, the shadow of the Earth on the moon.
Yeah.
It's been a long
of
time
course,
since I learned that.
most people don't know this, but you know the moon faces. The same side of the moon faces us all the time, and of course,
I did know that.
That's obvious. It's obvious that, you know, the reason for that is that the aliens have bases on the opposite side, and they're causing it to be geosynchronous or whatever. But
that is kind of scary to think about. Like, legitimately, there is a dark side of the moon. It's creepy.
Yeah. Yeah, and, you know, you were talking earlier about that lady who, Sonia Massey, who got shot in the face by that cop. She wasn't...
Is
she
that
didn't
the
have
woman
a
with the
pot of
water?
moldy- Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If you analyze the video, the pot is sitting on the stove for a while, but she grabs it and it wasn't boiling. Obviously, she poured it on. She used it to shield herself because the cop was pointing a gun in her face.
Oh.
And he ended up, you know, shooting her right in the face. Anyway, he was indicted on 3 counts of murder and some type of aggravated assault. But that doesn't mean that the Blue Line Gang, people out there, the I better not use those terms, won't find him not guilty because, of course, he's one of the good guys. And it turns out that she had this paranoia about cops. You know, she didn't want them in her house, the whole thing. Okay, last topic. Now,
I found out a reason about the moon. So I also thought it was the Earth's shadow, but it's not.
Okay.
It is the crescent moon phase is solely caused by the angle at which we see the illuminated part of the moon as it orbits the Earth, meaning only a small portion of the sunlit side is visible from our perspective, not due to Earth's shadow falling on it. So it's because of the direction that we're looking at, the part that's being lit up by the sun.
That makes a lot more sense. Yeah, why
which
would it be
is
straight otherwise?
interesting because I'm pretty sure we were all taught that it was the shadow of the Earth.
I feel like we were, but I was taught a lot of wrong things.
I would when I was saying, is that why? I was like, I guess that is what I was taught, but it didn't feel familiar to me.
We were taught a lot of wrong things as a kid. Like the one I always go back to is that we were taught that our blood was blue.
Yeah,
and that's
you
why
told
your
me that.
veins look blue, and it's not true. Your
I thought it was
blood
true
is
until
never blue.
You told me that like a year ago.
Yeah,
it's really
weird.
weird.
They taught us in school. That's what they told us.
Mine literally looks straight blue.
Mm-hmm.
It means I'm cool too.
Well, that would be the veins, right? Because they have depleted their oxygen, so they turn blue, just like a person turns blue when they.
Well, that's what Lori is saying. She's saying that
in school they taught us that your blood actually turns blue.
Yeah.
I understand. Yeah, that's. I'm not defending that. I'm just saying that that was the excuse.
Mm-hmm.
Was that it was the blood is red because it gets sent out as full of oxygen. Then on the way back, it's blue because the oxygen has been depleted. Anyway, never mind. I listen to the podcast most times, and what I've noticed here since the first, I tried to send you an email about this, is that the Odyssey uploads are coming out to be like 8 hours long rather than 2 hours and 45 minutes or 54 minutes.
Weird.
And 8 hours or 6 hours or 10 hours. And I try to listen to them, and all my phone does is just cycle and cycle and cycle. I never get to listen to the podcast. Just want to let you know something's going on there.
There are some other places you can listen. There's you can go to Twitch. You can listen to it on SoundCloud. You can listen to it on Spotify. And those places don't have that problem.
But,
it's just Odyssey.
Oh, so it's something you're aware of that.
Oh, I just got
new.
told about this the other day, but actually, I completely forgot as soon as somebody told me about it. But I will just have to basically do it like normal, see if the problem is still there, and then try again. I think that it has to be Odyssey's problem because we're doing everything the same we always do.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody recently told me,
I know it was just kind of
problem.
funny. It just kept circling and circling and circling, and I'm going.
Oh,
okay,
so it
then I
wasn't
looked
like
down,
the slow motion voice problem?
No.
No, it just buffers and won't
load.
even
just buffer. It won't even load. Yeah. Because it's 10 hours
I'll just
long.
email Odyssey.
So I know that it's an Odyssey problem because if you go to Twitch, that doesn't happen. So.
Okay, I'll just email Odyssey.
Anything special under Twitch or
it's just Twitch Free Talk Live. Just go to Twitch and search Free Talk Live, and you'll find it.
Well, that's the only brainstorm I had today.
Well, thank you for the call. Yeah, honestly, it's a good question. Why would the line in the middle be straight?
Because it's the angle.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense because, like, if just one side of the moon is basically it stops, even though it's round, it would be straight with a straight line just going across kind of just like the side of the moon.
Right, because you're seeing one side that is illuminated and the other side that's not illuminated, so the line's going down the middle.
Mm-hmm. It makes sense now.
Mm-hmm.
But during an eclipse, the Earth does cast a shadow, right?
It's during a lunar eclipse.
Oh, yeah, lunar.
Lunar
this
eclipse,
is the
the Earth eclipses the moon.
I learned it as a kid, the way to remember if it's lunar or solar. Well, when the moon is in the middle and the Earth is on the outside, the small thing is on the inside, so it's a solar eclipse. But when the Earth is in the middle and the moon is on the outside, then the large L thing is on the inside, so it's lunar eclipse. But you can also say little.
Mm-hmm. That seems like a weird way to remember it.
It made sense at the time until it's like I accidentally introduced another adjective that starts with L.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could say S. Never mind. I was thinking there's a word for big that's S. Maybe there is. It's just not coming to me right now. Well, Lori, at the beginning of the show, you had something you wanted to talk about FEMA. I really thought that the first article we talked about expressly mentioned FEMA, but it didn't. It was just talking about how do government employees get so entrenched that they don't help us when they're supposed to.
Mm.
And now real world explanation or example of this is FEMA right now, and their current number one priority, even during hurricane season, being equity. So we'll get into that in the next segment. It doesn't seem like that should be FEMA's number one priority to me.
It shouldn't be one of their priorities at all.
Equity. It's just that word is just starting to become code word for the government doing whatever they want. and making everybody poorer and making things work worse and not work as well every single day. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Rising fees have made Bitcoin useless for purchases, but Dash continues to have fees less than 1 cent per transaction, and its features ensure Dash is undefeated as the most useful cryptocurrency in the marketplace. From a technical standpoint, Dash transactions are irreversible, and its network is protected from 51% attacks by their Chainlocks technology. There's no need to wait for a confirmation before considering a Dash transaction complete, so it's great for merchants. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. Big thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nina Maria Potts with a roundup of the week's top stories. In the Middle East, Israel has said it's conducting a thorough review after the deaths of 2 UN peacekeepers on Friday in southern Lebanon. UN peacekeepers in Lebanon warned of very serious risks after the explosions. Israel and Hezbollah have continued in southern Lebanon since last week to clash when Israel embarked on a so-called targeted incursion into Lebanon against the Iran-backed Lebanese militant group. Friday's episode came after peacekeeping mission UNIFIL said its positions had been reportedly hit amid international condemnation of Israel on Thursday. On Friday, Hezbollah said it fired rockets at Israeli troops as the clashes continue. Jody Jacobs reports from the United Nations in New York.
The United Nations now increasingly concerned about the security of the Blue Helmets in southern Lebanon. This after it reported another explosion at its peacekeeping headquarters, the second time in the last 48 hours. 2 peacekeepers were injured and have now been hospitalized. The UN also reports that several walls at one of its positions fell when an IDF Caterpillar tank hit the perimeter, while others moved closer to the peacekeeping post. While the peacekeepers remained in position, the UN says these incidents again put the Blue Helmets, who are serving in South Lebanon at the request of the Security Council, at very serious risks. Attacks against UN peacekeepers are a grave violation of international law and legally binding Security Council resolutions. Jody Jacobs, New York.
At least 16 people are now known to have died in Florida after Hurricane Milton swept across the state this week. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said search and rescue efforts are ongoing. Milton made landfall on Wednesday night as a powerful Category 3 hurricane, bringing torrential rain, powerful winds and tornadoes. Officials in Clearwater in Florida say more than 500 people had to be rescued from a flooded apartment complex on Thursday in the wake of the storm.
State search and rescue teams across the state have continued to work around the clock to successfully execute rescue missions of individuals as well as a lot of pets on the West Coast, as well as from the destruction from the tornadoes in other parts of the state. You already have 1.6 million accounts have been restored in the state of Florida.
This week, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken condemned Beijing's increasingly dangerous actions in the South China Sea and voiced support for freedom of navigation. Laura Westbrook has more.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken had strong words for Southeast Asian leaders. He said the U.S. was concerned about China's dangerous and unlawful actions in the South China Sea, which have injured people, harmed vessels, and contradicts commitments to peaceful resolution of disputes.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number. That's 603-283-6160. And we've been podcasting since podcasts began, but we're launching a new podcast anyway. Our new podcast is a 30 to 45 minute show, releasing once a week, and you can find it at freetalkcast.com. It's brought to you by the same people who bring you Free Talk Live, and we'd love for you to check it out. The existing radio archive isn't going anywhere. This is just a new show designed from the start to be a podcast, so check it out at freetalkcast.com. And with you on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
And Lori.
And we have a caller on the line. We have David from New Mexico. David, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Lots of stuff, Bonnie. But so which one? I'm confused. Which one do you prefer? The big one inside or the little one side? What were you talking about?
I don't know what you're talking about. The moon?
Good thing. That's good. That's a good thing. So I want to talk about the moon, but first of all, I want to talk about my twig and berries here that Chupi brought me. She brought me a present. Yeah,
she brought you twigs and berries.
Yeah. Well, it's not like I didn't have some already, but she brought me some more. And
it's weird.
And yeah, it's quite nice twig and with quite nice berries. But you know how I put water out for her every day, and she appreciated it. So she goes out every night to find food. And one of the things that they eat, probably actually the main thing they eat, is this one particular weed that has it's got a twig and it's got berries. And she goes out and collects those and eats parts of the twigs, the tender parts, and the berries. And I leave her water. And so this morning I woke up and in the water dish she left me something to eat. One of her twigs and berries.
Is it like sweet? Is it like cats where they think you're like a terrible hunter and you'll die without them?
Yeah, she secretly thinks I suck.
That's crazy that I didn't know rats would do anything like that.
Rats are really interesting animals.
I've always heard they're really smart, but I just wouldn't think that they would bring something to a human. It's like, I would think they're just like, gotta get mine.
No, rats are really, really caring little animals. They have a lot of empathy for others. Like they did experiments on rats to, like they'd withhold food from them and then they'd give them, give one of the rats some food and not the other. And the one would always share with the other one.
That's so cute.
Yeah.
Well, are you going to bring your rats with you if you move to New Hampshire, David?
Well, that would violate the NAP, wouldn't it? The non-aggression, whatever.
I don't think that pets have a right to not be pets.
It would be rat napping. They didn't consent.
They purposely go into your house all the time. It's not rat napping to rat napping. It's not dog napping for me to have coconut, is it?
I mean, I come into your house all the time, Bonnie, but if you stuck me in a van and drove me across the country, I might be upset.
Yeah, but this thing comes into David's house and eats bread off his counter. This thing.
Yeah, well, just because rats are doing home invasions, I mean, does it justify that?
This is why I'm saying it's not. It's because I don't think that rats have human rights. I think if you wanted to take a rat and eat it, you could.
They have rat rights, which are higher than human rights.
Oh, are they?
Yeah. I mean, which one would you rather squash under your boot, a rat or a human?
A rat.
A rat.
Oh, come on now. No way.
I would be grossed out and wouldn't want that to happen.
Yeah, either way.
But are you saying would I rather kill a human or just accidentally step on their foot or something?
I didn't say that. I just said mash them under your boot.
Well, it's kind of impossible unless they're like a baby, and at that point it could actually hurt them.
Oh, wait, no, we're not talking about dead babies here on this show.
That's what I'm saying.
Be nice.
Okay, well, whatever you're talking about, I don't think your point was made.
Yeah.
So you're not going to take your rats with you. You're going to leave them. The only reason I was thinking you probably would say no is for whatever reason, they need that habitat. Maybe
they're going to be so sad. They're going to bring all their little twigs and berries, and David won't be there for them.
Yeah, I know. I was actually thinking that would be sad.
Well, it is sad, but I don't want to be a rat napper. So I'll just have to leave I'm going to name the ranch the Bunny Ranch, unless that's already taken. And I'm going to leave it to the bunnies and the rats.
I think the bunny ranch is already taken. You're going to have to go with the rat ranch.
Okay, well, I'll get some chickens. I'll call it the chicken ranch unless that's taken.
Is the bunny ranch like what they call the Playboy Bunny Mansion or something?
No, I think it's like a brothel type place in Vegas,
It's
maybe?
not like a brothel. It is a brothel.
Do they still call them brothels, or is it just like a whorehouse?
Yeah. No, it's a brothel.
Okay.
It's respectable. It's a
Respectable.
brothel. You know, whorehouses are not respectable. Brothels are.
I did not know brothels were supposed to be. A brothel was supposed to be like a respectable word. Like you call it that to be
Yeah.
respectable. I never heard that in my life.
Why do you think they call them the woman who runs it a madam?
Madam.
You know, they don't call her hey Missy. They call her madam.
I don't know. I can't imagine being that job. Of all jobs on the planet, like I can't imagine being a person whose job is to be in. Ugh. I mean, it's all consenting. I just hate it.
Yeah, well, you should ask
Unless it's
Kurt
not.
about it. Apparently, he's pretty familiar with all those girls.
Who?
He would probably tell you they all look pretty happy.
Who is?
Turd.
Oh.
Turd's an expert on that industry, you know, the OnlyFans and all that. So I asked him about it. Huh?
I feel like Turd was on the show like not that long ago and said he wasn't a fan of that stuff.
Well, he said I don't know. I remember him talking about one particular girl that he knew that he had heard he had an OnlyFans, and he'd sure like to find it because he'd pay whatever a month to see that.
Turd?
Yeah, Turd.
Turd, yeah.
Yeah, Turd's
Ferguson.
obsessed with women. He kind of alluded to it more last call than he normally does on the show.
Yeah. So, a related subject, the moon. So, what is it you can't figure out about the moon?
Oh, so Jet called in
Why
and
does it
confused
ring
us.
when you shoot it with stuff?
Jet called in and tricked us. He said that the moon is
Made it
sorry, threw me off because that's another thing. I've heard that same thing that somebody claims that they hit the moon's surface
Yeah, they shot
and
the moon and it rang.
Went like ding,
Rang like a bell.
like a bell. I don't know how you possibly do that. Like, how's that possible? Like,
Cowboys do that all the time. They're always shooting the moon when they come out of the saloon and they're all drunk, and they're just constantly shooting at the moon.
what does that mean?
They got moon guns and they just shoot all the way to the moon. I don't know.
pull their
I
six
don't
shooter-
know.
They
They
pull
just
their
shoot in the
six shooter
sky.
So
out,
when
and,
a-
they're all drunk.
When an astronaut was on the surface of the moon, allegedly, if he just threw a rock down, was it going to go ding? Like how?
I don't think that would work because there's like not the same gravity. So like you would have to be the strongest person in the universe to throw a rock so hard that it would go at such a force to hit the moon.
But every time like a
gun?
meteorite hits the moon, or I assume that happens since meteorites hit here.
I don't know. I think they like shot a missile at it.
Either way, that's the
Ask
separate
Stu.
thing.
Ask Stu on Wednesday. He knows the
There's
whole
also-
story.
There's also no atmosphere, so there's no noise to go bing.
Oh, that's actually like a really good point.
Is
Do
it
they
though?
have
The
no-
space makes noise.
Do they
There's
have-
noise in
I'm
space.
told.
Do they have zero
No, there's
atmosphere or just like a weak
There
atmosphere?
is noise in space.
No, there's not. No, there's not. You're wrong.
Okay.
There's no noise in a vacuum. Space is a vacuum. There's no noise in a vacuum because there's no molecules to knock together to transmit the sound wave. So you're wrong.
Okay, I don't know. I have no idea. That every time I hear that story that like someone shot something at the Earth and made it, in the moon and it made a ding and that means hollow.
Space is
I don't
generally
know
very
if-
quiet because sound waves can't travel through the vacuum of space. Sound needs a medium like air molecules to travel through vibrating the molecules. However, there are some conditions where sound can exist in space, such as hot gases, electromagnetic vibrations, black holes, sonifications. There's noise in space.
Wow, what website can I find all that at?
AI Google result.
The internet, just like I don't know, Google
I just
sound in
guessed.
space.
Go
to Astronomy Magazine.
One thing I'd be interested to know though is just, does the moon have any atmosphere? Does it have like a weak atmosphere or no atmosphere?
The answer would be no atmosphere. It probably has held its small gravitational force has probably held a few molecules. However you want to define it, measure it, but not enough to have any effect whatsoever.
So, the quick result said that it has a very thin atmosphere called an exosphere made up of hydrogen, neon, and argon, but it's so thin that it's considered a vacuum for most practical purposes.
Wow.
The reason I know that there's sound in space is because I've heard it. They've made recordings of sound in space, and I've heard them.
Well, it depends on how you measure it. The human ear is not going to hear any sounds in space. Some other recording device may be able to pick up energy waves that are labeled as sound.
Well, that's all sound is. Your ear just translates those vibrations into noises with your brain.
So I wondered how they could have communicated on the moon because they had radio. And, well, that makes sense because they use radio waves to communicate, it says, but that makes sense because you said electromagnetic can move without air.
Tin cans and a string is what they had on the moon.
No, it's not. Okay, well.
Did she sign language?
The real thing you were actually asking, David, was you were asking why we brought up the moon is because Jet tricked us. He called and said that the reason that there's a shadow on the moon is because of the Earth being in the middle of it, and then we Googled it and we found that's not true. It's the angle of the amount of light shining on the moon.
Yeah, and your position of looking at it.
Yeah, and as the moon goes around the Earth. So.
Yeah, well, if you can't envision by looking at the moon, there it is right there. I'm looking at it now, and I can tell by how the light shape is on the moon where the sun is. And so, what you're trying to say earlier is that the moon is a sphere. And then there are some times when the moon is exactly half with a straight line, and that's because of the position of the sun. Is if you draw a line from you to the moon, the sun is going to be essentially 90 degrees perpendicular to that line, and so its shadow is on the edge of the moon. That if you look straight at the moon, appears to be a straight line to you. You're exactly 90 degrees, so it's exactly a straight line to your line of sight. Whereas if it was 91 degrees or 89 degrees from your line of sight to the moon and then to the sun, if that angle was 89 degrees or 91 degrees, then you'd start to see a slight curve to that line because
Yep. That makes sense to me now, but the thing was Jet tricked us. He made us think that
Stop doing that, Jet.
Yeah, no, just kidding. I don't think he purposely tricked us, but I'm just being silly. But
and
he believed that the Earth's shadow was what the darkness was.
Yeah, okay. And there's not a dark side to the moon.
Oh, okay. Somebody said that in the chat, and I was like, well, yes, there is, because...
No, it's not.
Well, but nope. Okay, but no, I'm open to being wrong. I'm just saying, but this was my thought process. Whether it's dark over there or not isn't, relevant. My thought is it's creepy that there is a part of the moon that's always facing away from us and we can't see it from here.
You
whether
know why
it's dark
that
there or
most
not.
likely is?
Wait, what?
You know why that most likely is?
Why?
And I've never researched this, so I'll put it out there, and then you can look it up and see if I'm right. I'm going to speculate that the moon does not have its heaviest. The moon does not have its center of gravity in the geographical center of the moon. That it's offset from the center of the moon, and the Earth's gravitational pull on the moon pulls on that center of gravity, center of mass, and therefore it keeps the one side toward the Earth all of the time because of that anomaly. That's what I speculate.
That sounds like a good guess. I just never looked into it or Googled it.
I looked it up one time, and I think it was something about the rotations of both things being in some certain way.
It is. Yeah, it depends on chicken and egg. Is the rotation of the moon exactly 24 hours, which happens to be an Earth day? Is that a coincidence that they're exactly the same, or is more likely the the moon's
that doesn't make sense because then in China they'd be seeing a different side.
It's called tidal locking. One side of the moon always faces Earth because the time it takes for the moon to rotate on its axis is exactly the same amount of time as it takes to orbit the Earth. It's a phenomenon called tidal locking. Essentially, the Earth's gravity has synchronized the moon's rotation with its orbit, so the same side always points towards us.
But wouldn't China be seeing the other side if it's actually turning? Or is it turning opposite the Earth is turning, so we always...
China's seeing the exact same moon that you're seeing right now. They're just seeing it in daytime.
Okay. It's just so confusing. Whatever.
When you look up in...
So you're saying that the other side of the moon faces the Earth sometimes, but no one sees it?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Oh, that's why I'm asking.
I'm saying that the moon rotates, just like you already said. The moon rotates once every. Oh, now you got me confused. The moon rotates, has one revolution every lunar cycle?
Every 27 days.
Yeah. Okay. So, now I forgot your question, Bonnie.
Why, if the moon is rotating all the way around, then why does no one ever see the other side? Like, does it rotate all around and the other side faces the Earth, yet no one sees it? Because it always is the same.
The same side of the moon is always facing the Earth, and the Earth rotates. Therefore, if the Earth is rotating, a complete revolution every 24 hours, that means that the moon is also doing. Oh darn it! Now I'm not gonna do it because I'm gonna make a liar out of myself. I know how to think it, but I can't say it properly, and so to be continued.
Okay, we can always just Google this. It's not that interesting to me. Honestly, I just don't care.
Okay, here's a visual, Bonnie.
Well, actually, it is very interesting.
When I was a kid,
how it rotates around the Earth.
See, that's exactly what I was envisioning, except that I don't consider that to be rotating.
But look at it closely. It's rotating. It's rotating like vertically at the same time as it's orbiting. Do you see?
In what I see? Oh, I'm looking at the one on the right. They're two different ones. Okay.
Do you see how the moon is spinning at the same time?
Yeah.
So the moon is locked into position with the Earth because of the gravity. So it's holding it this way and it's rotating this way.
Mm-hmm. So it's like something that's rolling down a hill.
Kind of.
That's the hills of a circle. Well, I mean, I just don't really care. When I was a little kid, I needed glasses and didn't know it for a long time. And one day I was just like, I can't see the board when I was in a class where I kind of was towards the back, and the teacher like didn't believe me and thought I just wanted to move or something, which is stupid. And then like it was discovered that I needed glasses. Like I really don't know how long I really needed them, because I could survive. I could just squint and I could survive for a long time before I finally said something to that teacher. And then I got glasses, and then I never wanted to wear my glasses. So that was 6th grade. And then one day I just was wearing my glasses all day for whatever reason. Like, I don't know, just felt like it. And the sun went down, and I'm looking at the moon, and I was like, that's not how I've ever seen it before. I always thought the moon looked to the human eye like a bright light. If you like ever see a bright light and you can kind of make like squint your eyes or something and make it look like it's like fuzzy. Mm-hmm. That's how the moon always looked to me. And then in like 9th grade, I saw what it really looked like. So
you saw the face.
I just thought that you could only see that in like a telescope or something until I was literally like 14. Just because I didn't want to wear my glasses.
Vanity.
Yeah. Like people would always be like, Bonnie, I saw you in the hallway and I waved, but you didn't wave back. And I'd be like, it's because I wasn't wearing my glasses. I didn't want to wear my glasses. No, I didn't want to wear my glasses. I didn't see them. I would only wear them to see the board. And now I have contacts, so everything is so much better.
I still do that. I'm supposed to wear glasses, and I just don't wear them like most of the time.
It's like, that's not my face. I'm sorry. It's not vain to hate looking like a different person than I actually look.
I just don't like wearing them. I don't like them on me.
Mm-hmm.
But I also can't like get down with peeling. So putting the contact in is fine, but when I have to go take it out, it feels like you're peeling your eyeball off. I just can't do it. It took me so long to get it back out.
The one time that I got, or not one, like several times I've gotten stuck by like sleeping with them on accident. That is really terrifying.
Yeah, no way.
Because it feels like you're going to hurt it.
One of my friends left her contact out and I watched it like shatter because it got too dry. And I was like, imagine that happening in your eye.
Yeah, that's what's really scary. Because like I take them out and leave them on the table next to me all the time when I'm like, oh crap, I'm still wearing my glasses or contacts. I have to go to sleep. And the next day they literally like feel like little pieces of glass.
Mm-mm.
But they weren't before.
I do not want to put little tiny pieces of glass in my
eye. I love contacts so much. They literally changed my life. Thank you for the call, David. It'd be really interesting if he does move to New Hampshire. What kind of activism we do. It's just so easy to do activism here.
Mm-hmm.
There's always an election. There's always things going on. So in the last segment, we started talking about equity being FEMA, which I honestly don't remember what FEMA stands for off the top of my head.
Federal Emergency Management Agency, I think. Something like that.
And their top
it's
priority.
right here. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, yeah.
Good.
Yep.
Their top priority is equity. That doesn't sound about right.
Yeah. So this is from reason.com, and it says FEMA should stick to disaster recovery and quit social engineering. Goal number 1 of FEMA's strategic plan is to instill equity as a foundation of emergency management. The Federal Emergency Management Agency has received praise and scorn for its responses to Hurricanes Helene and Milton. Regardless of FEMA's performance, many might be surprised to learn that Goal 1 of FEMA's 2022 to 2026 strategic plan is to instill to instill equity as a foundation of emergency management. FEMA's equity agenda begins with ensuring that all Americans can access the agency's resources. Objective 1.2 of the December 2021 plan aims to remove barriers to FEMA programs.
The December 2021 plan?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
they've already started this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Acknowledging that some people have difficulty understanding the agency's programs due to language accessibility, literacy, technical expertise, or disability challenges. Removing barriers is a laudable goal, consistent with the equal protection under the law. However, FEMA's plan goes well beyond ensuring equal access. To address systemic differences in society, FEMA says it must direct its resources to eliminate disparities.
It just seems like people should have realized by now that that is such a load of barnacles, because it's like during COVID, they were always saying like, oh, such and such person is more likely, it has higher disparities and is more likely to die of COVID and stuff. And I don't remember people really falling for that. Like, it just sounds like such an obvious like pandering. Like if I was like Black and I was hearing like, well, you need to take the vaccine because you're at higher risk, I'd feel like I was being lied to.
So that's all these social equity programs are, is like, oh, we need to not expect people to have proper grammar because don't you know Black people are too stupid? Like that's basically what they're saying.
That's basically exactly what Biden said. He was like, well, you see, we need to make sure Black people get vaccinated because they don't know how to use the internet.
Which is so racist.
Crazy.
It's absolutely racist. Like, I think Black people are perfectly capable of speaking properly and having proper grammar and, you know, all the same things that white people can do.
Yeah, but exactly to that point, they said that teaching math and teaching English in school is racist because Black people are bad at that. And that is terrible. That's just not true.
Right. That's the actual racist thing, is to say that they're bad at these things as a whole group. So this is, in the very next sentence, the agency admits that its assistance is not designed to solve societal inequities. So is FEMA trying to reduce systemic inequities or not?
Besides, aren't they just going to make new inequities if they start trying to target certain groups? Like, imagine thinking that like there's a freaking hurricane and it's more important to make sure the exact same number of white, Black, and Mexican or whatever people get help instead of just helping the first people you can possibly get help.
It's not that the same number of white, Black, and Mexicans. It's to help the Mexicans and the Blacks and the, you know, the LGBTQIA plus people first more because, you know.
Because that's not inequity at that point. Because that's inequality.
That's equality because they have, their lives are just harder. And, you know, when hurricanes hit, they target minorities. I've seen it with my own eyes. They wash away minorities' houses specifically, and they leave the white people fine and alone.
That's why white people leave a box of crackers on their front porch during a hurricane.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So
Uncle Cracker can come and bless your house.
And wash over you or whatever.
FEMA's February 2022 Equity Action Plan stated that it will direct resources to eliminating disparities in outcomes, building resilient infrastructure in communities, and flood mitigation assistance are two of the agency's programs that advance such distributional equity by participating in the Biden administration's Justice 40 initiative. Justice 40 directs 40% of the benefits of certain federal climate, clean energy, affordable and sustainable housing, and other investments to disadvantaged communities. FEMA's Regional Catastrophic Preparedness Grant and Risk Mapping, Assessment, and Planning programs were added to Justice 40's official covered programs list in November 2023.
Well, it just sounds like the government trying to pander to people. Honestly, I don't even get why anyone falls for this crap anymore. And the thing is, like, I know that some people do. It's just that it feels like most people in my real life are saying, like, how crazy is that? And then only people on the internet are saying, I'm such and such minority and I have at greater risk for things than white people. It's just crazy. 603, at freetalklive.com for more. Thanks for listening. Peace.
Bewildered paralegal Caitlin Levy says that after returning home from work today, it occurred to her that oddly at no point during her day was she harassed, leered at, or made to feel humiliated or physically threatened.
It's weird. Looking back on it, I suddenly realized that not one strange man made a creepy comment at me or an obscene gesture or a sleazy look for like the whole day. How can that be?
The 29-year-old told reporters that even at points in her day when she is traditionally